Before returning to the college entrance exam, I became popular in the scientific community. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 276 Confirmation. Wu Tong's name once again spread throughout the world. Meanwhile, the editorial staff of the Kyoto University Mathematical Annals discovered two incredibly important submissions. Who hasn't heard of the Navier-Stokes equation these days? Professor Wu Tong of Kyoto University had proved the Navier-Stokes equation, and the method he used to prove it had even established a new discipline. They assumed Wu Tong, as usual, had submitted his paper to one of the four major journals, hoping and begging for his favor, and for one of them to publish his proof and method. The Kyoto University Mathematical Annals editorial staff even held more than one discussion, predicting which of the four top journals Wu Tong would submit to. Many felt that Wu Tong, having collaborated most extensively with the Annals of Mathematics, would likely choose them. Although the journal shared the same name, it was not the same journal as their own, and the two were completely incomparable. No matter which journal Wu Tong belonged to, they had never dreamed he would submit his paper to their Kyoto University Mathematical Annals, even without any prior notice. Looking at the two papers that had been quietly sitting in their mailbox for days, the editor in charge of reviewing them felt like he was going crazy. Four top journals were vying for papers that had shaken the world. How big of a deal was their Kyoto University Mathematical Annals to keep Wu Tong waiting? The editor in charge of the initial review was horrified and didn't know what to say. He wanted to shout, "Boss, can you please be a little special? When students of ordinary professors and scholars submit papers to them, they'll give them a heads up, mentioning that they're his students and asking them to be more considerate of their papers to increase their acceptance rate." But this man, the one who was so good at making special arrangements that they had to concoct a team to review his papers, was completely unremarkable. He just dropped his manuscript into their submission box like a normal student, almost unnaturally so, waiting for their approval. If he had been even slightly clumsy or perfunctory, and had casually rejected these two papers, their entire Beijing University Mathematical Annals would have been in trouble. Editor-in-chief, come quickly, come quickly. The reviewing editor, realizing what was happening, cried out like a ghost. Something big had happened, something extremely urgent. What's going on? Why is there so much noise? The editor-in-chief of the Mathematical Annals was named Wan. Editor-in-chief Wan frowned, displeased with his subordinate's attitude. Wu Tong, Professor Wu, the proof of the NS equation and the infinite topological manifold have been submitted to us, the reviewing editor immediately reported, not daring to breathe. What, now? It was editor-in-chief Wan's turn to lose his composure. No one would have been able to remain calm after hearing this news. He would have thought that he had tinnitus and delusions. How could he have heard such incredible news? Was he still asleep? Professor Wu has submitted his proof of the NS equations and his paper on infinite topological manifolds to us. The papers are in the submission mailbox. The reviewing editors could clearly understand the shock that filled the room. No one could have imagined that Wu Tong would actually submit such a major achievement to their internationally unknown journal, the Annals of Mathematics of the University of Tokyo. At this moment, their first reaction was to wonder if Wu Tong had submitted the manuscript to the wrong place. Even though the submission email address for the Annals of Mathematics of the University of Tokyo bore no resemblance to that of the International Annals of Mathematics, Wu Tong, who is accustomed to submitting to the International Annals of Mathematics, must have a default address and would not have made a mistake. It took a long while for editor-in-chief Wan to react. He immediately transferred the two papers to his authority and called the School of Mathematics of the University of Tokyo. Dean Pan, Wu Tong, are you sure you want to submit two papers to the Peking University Mathematical Annals? Pan Wenho was a little hesitant at this moment. In today's mathematics community, who doesn't take pride in submitting to the four major international journals? Domestic universities, openly or covertly, are seeking various visible and invisible rewards for international journals. The trend is like this. All scholars are racking their brains and trying every possible way to submit to the top journals, to the first zone. And Wu Tong, it was a common thing for him to publish in the 4 top journals. Since he came to prominence, every paper he published represented the birth of a major achievement, and they were all specially invited to be published in the journals, not to mention that this time it was the Millennium Problem, the NS equation. Presumably, the 4 top journals would have been vying for Wu Tong's favor. Yes, Dean Pan, adding icing on the cake isn't that important to me. I hope that one day, our Chinese journals will be the subject of global acclaim. Yes, we will. We will continue to strive for improvement and will never let Professor Wu down. Pan Wenho's phone was on full blast. Standing next to him was the recently arrived editor-in-chief of the Beijing University Mathematical Annals. 1. Hearing Wu Tong's decision and considerations, one's heart surged with emotion. A top scholar like Wu Tong, so attentive and concerned about the development of Chinese journals, would use his influence to raise the impact factor and visibility of the Beijing University Mathematical Annals. How could they, as members of the Beijing University Mathematical Annals, not strive to enhance and maintain its influence? In the past, they had to put in a lot of effort to solicit contributions from renowned scholars. Now, Wu Tong was offering them the power of his influence. If they didn't seize this opportunity, all their support would be in vain. A good blacksmith must have strong tools. Leveraging Wu Tong's influence, they were poised to achieve a significant boost in their reputation. The journal's content needed to be engaging and innovative to retain the enormous attention they were about to receive. Dean Pan, Dean Zhou, I hope you two will work together. I'll also ask Director Tian for help. Let's invite more top mathematicians from home and abroad to review Wu Tong's papers. We'll dedicate a special issue to these 2 masterpieces, Editor-in-Chief Wan pleaded earnestly. They knew they could offer Wu Tong the same treatment they could overseas. Okay, we'll send requests on behalf of the university and the journal to internationally renowned scholars, Terence Tao, Mr. Chu, Mr. Feynman, Mr. Faltings, Pan Wenho and Zhou Wenping discussed the matter. They would send review invitations to scholars known to possess exceptional academic expertise in partial differential equations, differential manifolds, and topology. In addition, we will hold a special academic conference on the NS equations in a week. Mathematicians from all over the world will witness this grand event. They have consulted with Wu Tong and have released reservations on the official website. Wu Tong's special conference will be held as scheduled. This time, the conference will be held in the Great Hall again, and mathematical scholars and enthusiasts from home and abroad are sincerely invited to attend. Chapter 277 Changes. There was no question that a single academic conference couldn't resolve. If there were still any issues, then another conference would be the answer. Conferences have always been the fastest way to publicize research results and gain wider global recognition. A conference on the NS equations was a must-do. During Wu Tong's paper interview, requests for a conference had already nearly overwhelmed Kyoto University's public inbox. Invitations to Wu Tong to host the conference were countless. Kyoto University was absolutely unwilling to delegate this task. Therefore, after consulting Wu Tong, arrangements for the NS Equations Conference were immediately implemented. With the utmost support from higher-ups, everything proceeded smoothly and orderly. Because this was the second time China had held such a grand event, practice made perfect. This time, arrangements were hastily arranged, with everything smoothly arranged, waiting for September 30th, the eve of the nation's birthday. This grand event would be a National Day tribute, a celebration for the great nation. The closer it gets to this time, the more bustling Shangjing becomes. The people of Shangjing deeply feel that they are the most knowledgeable and mathematically active people. Twice a year, the world's mathematical community focuses on Shangjing. As a Shangjing native, we are so proud. For this grand event of tens of thousands of people, even more than 10,000 people flock to Shangjing, especially domestic mathematics enthusiasts and people from all walks of life who follow Wu Tong. They all chose to travel thousands of miles to Shangjing. Even though the academic conference had certain mathematical level restrictions for participants in order to better spread mathematical knowledge and respond to invitations, it still couldn't dampen the enthusiasm of the people across the country. Coincidentally, it happened to be the National Day holiday, and many people took leave in advance and came to Shangjing early. Except for the official hotels designated for participants that had been booked in advance, all hotels and B&Bs in Shangjing were completely full. Chinese people have always been known for their enthusiasm for fun. The 7-day National Day holiday is one of the longest vacations of the year, so why not go anywhere? And if you can witness such a grand event in Shanghai, and even visit the Forbidden City, the Great Wall, Peking University, and more, then you've got to come. It doesn't matter if they can't get into the venue, they'll be witnessing the event from nearby. And this is just the vanguard. Once the National Day holiday begins, a large number of people will flock to Shanghai, and they'll continue to pour in on the evening of the event. Shanghai has already started promoting it in the news. If you don't absolutely need to travel elsewhere during the holiday, please do so. Shanghai welcomes tourists from all over the country to visit next time. Even the most welcoming city has its limits, and the influx of visitors is already exceeding its capacity. Diversion is essential. The Shanghai team is both excited and overwhelmed. Of course, this pain is also a happy burden. Whether Shanghai can establish itself as a world-renowned city depends on how well they establish themselves. Wu Tong's influence has once again benefited Shangjing. Despite the tight deadline, Shangjing City has thoroughly cleaned up its cityscape. With extensive sewage treatment, waste disposal, and other comprehensive support and transformation, Shangjing will once again amaze the world with its brand new look. The people of Shangjing are confident that their environment and cultural heritage are among the best in the world. With clean, tidy, vibrant greenery, crystal clear waters, and meticulously processed municipal waste, leaving no trace of environmental damage, the transformation of Shangjing over the past 6 months has been remarkable. True to the confidence of its people, the visitors from home and abroad who visited Shangjing at the end of September were astounded by the city's transformation. This transformation isn't simply the addition of tall buildings. In just 6 months, Shangjing has become a reborn city. Rivers and lakes that once held a faint odor are now crystal clear, like the purest mountain springs. Nourished by this well-sourced water, the entire environment glows with an intoxicating vitality, and the spirits of the people are more vibrant than ever before. This feeling instantly struck home to the domestic and international visitors who visited Shangjing in early April. Oh my God, I didn't get off the wrong plane. It's Shangjing International Airport. We've arrived in Shangjing. The favorable ecological environment and the fresh air brought by this beautiful environment made the overseas tourists landing in Shangjing unable to stop and glance back at the signs. They had indeed arrived in Shangjing, a bustling international metropolis, not some Icelandic glacier or some other tourist destination known for its forest oxygen bar. This feeling became increasingly pronounced the closer they got to the city. Exclamations of wonder became the norm, and the drivers who heard them all straightened their backs with pride. They were in Shangjing. That was the grandeur of it all. Although they didn't quite understand the technology used to achieve such miraculous changes, it didn't dampen the pride as beneficiaries. Tao, I think it's dangerous. Stay longer, and I might fall deeply in love with this place. Andrew Wiles sighed deeply as he strolled along the riverside path in the official hotel, breathing in the fresh air of lush greenery and the delicate fragrance of flowers. Compared to the gloomy weather and environment of most foggy cities, Shangjing is truly beautiful now. I think so too. The change is truly tremendous. Tao's Haxuan gently opened his arms. 6 months ago, when they arrived, the river, despite the treatment, was still somewhat murky and smelly. But 6 months later, when they returned to the same place, the transformation had been earth-shattering, a miraculous transformation that filled them with awe. If this transformation spread nationwide, then he would be even more deeply impressed by the Chinese administrators and proud of the place where his bloodline came from. Hey, Deline, Feynman, you guys are down here too? Are you feeling the same wonder? Andrew, glancing at the group approaching from the other direction, opened his arms and greeted them warmly. It's truly wondrous, but we want to enjoy it quietly. Andrew, Deline felt that even after all these years of working together, even as they were about to part, he still hadn't gotten used to Andrew's inexplicable excitement. In such a tranquil and elegant environment, didn't Andrew feel that talking was superfluous? This was the place to quietly appreciate. Just like the Navier-Stokes equations they would be studying tomorrow. The ripples on the river, the water as fluid, the ripples as motion, all described by the Navier-Stokes equations. They just wanted to quietly admire the view, quietly savoring the wonder they had experienced reading the paper. Chapter 278 Transcendence. You're the most boring Belgian, Andrew shrugged, not angry. After so many years of working together, they knew each other's personalities well. You two continue your silent observation, thank you for understanding, Andrew. Deline wasn't the least bit annoyed by the dull comment, just as he could never understand Andrew's endless enthusiasm. Mutual respect is the best way to get along. Andrew walked closer and saw a rather expressionless face. Oh, this wasn't what he wanted to see. Faltings, when will he be a little happier? Serious Faltings. You're here too, Faltings. Andrew felt that he was a polite man, and even if he was intimidated by Faltings, he still had to be polite. Hello, Schultz. The young man next to him looked even more adorable. Good afternoon, Mr. Wiles. Schultz, a younger generation, greeted politely and formally. He didn't have the confidence that Faltings had to ignore the prover of Fermat's last theorem. China is truly a magical place, isn't it? We've traveled thousands of miles to meet again here. Andrew could still sing his praises even in the face of Faltings's stern face. Faltings rolled his eyes at someone he considered to be mentally ill, the noisy Andrew. I'm here to be the judge. Since he'd been invited to serve as a reviewer, he would see it through to the end, standing up for mathematics. September 30th, 9 o'clock. The conference hall was completely packed, not a single seat empty. Regardless of the level of academic expertise, those present had at least studied or researched mathematics and possessed a certain understanding. Invited official media had also arrived and taken their seats. At that moment, from the internationally renowned figures in the front row to the novice mathematicians in the back, everyone watched with excitement as the countdown on the screen reached 0, marking the hour. No one needed to adjust their discipline. At the moment the clock struck 9, the hall, as if paused, fell silent, the murmur of discussion gone. A renowned host from the national television station took the stage and, with a simple yet profoundly meaningful speech, ushered Wu Tong onto the stage. Under the gaze of the crowd, Wu Tong steadily stepped onto the stage. A projection of the corresponding academic conference title appeared on the large screen behind her, proof of the existence and smoothness of solutions to the three-dimensional incompressible Navier-Stokes equations. Thank you all for coming here again, across mountains and seas. It's great to see you again, listening to my talk. Wu Tong took a deep breath and spoke slowly. Before she took the stage, Dean Pen and Professor Zhou, who were sitting with her backstage, had asked her if she was ready. She had replied firmly and calmly, yes, but now, standing in the center of this vast stage for the second time, Wu Tong felt the same surge of pride and excitement at being there. This is the highest respect the Chinese people hold. Having grown up in this environment, this place has always held a special and irreplaceable meaning for Wu Tong. She left her mark here, and she will make it even more glorious. For a long time, we have been pursuing an equation of motion that describes the conservation of momentum in viscous, incompressible fluids. We long for a definitive answer to explain why a high-speed car doesn't disintegrate, why a calm lake doesn't explode. The truth behind these seemingly common sense, taken for granted facts. Today, I believe I can provide a satisfactory answer. After a brief opening, Wu Tong launched into her presentation of the paper. Today's meeting revolved around the Navier-Stokes equations, with no time limit or question restrictions. This was a dedicated presentation on the Navier-Stokes equations. Lines of mathematically beautiful formulas unfolded on the large screen, capturing the attention of everyone present. The vector form is equals p plus a plus v, p plus a plus v, and the Navier-Stokes equations simplify to the Euler equations for ideal flow, equals p plus a. Wu Tong maintained a steady voice, explaining each word one by one. As she spoke, the content on the large screen changed one by one. At first, most people in the conference hall could understand the lecture. However, as the content deepened, especially when Wu Tong began to apply topology to partial differential equations and introduce infinite topological manifolds, the audience of 10,000 people was already completely bewildered. As expected, mathematics is a very small world. We mortals come here just to prove that we are fools listening to incomprehensible teachings. Many attendees in the back row, who claimed to be math enthusiasts and even thought they were quite good at math, having won awards in modeling competitions in school, couldn't help but sigh quietly. It's difficult, it's really difficult. It's not that Wu Tong's lecture is bad, but that we overestimate ourselves. I guess only the big guys in the front row can understand what Wu Tong is saying. Indeed, the front row was mostly made up of internationally renowned scholars. Before coming, they had studied Wu Tong's preprint papers. Now, listening to Wu Tong's lecture, the unclear points suddenly became clear and understood. This time, the 4 Millennium Talents of Kyoto University, many renowned graduates of Kyoto University, all returned to China, each furiously writing down their insights and notes. Wu Tong had explained the lecture in great detail, but their skills were limited, especially for those not versed in those fields, so it was a bit difficult to follow. Everyone knew Wu Tong excelled in number theory, but the interview with the NS equation revealed that this was only the tip of the iceberg. She possessed exceptional academic prowess in differential equations, topology, and more, and the proof of the NS equation was the ultimate testament to her abilities. This woman wasn't just the number theory prodigy they traditionally considered, but a talent so vast across all mathematical fields that it commanded admiration. Once, they had been admired by so many, but now, with the same gaze, they gazed upon the person on the stage, the one they had come to admire for being the first to arrive and call their junior. She had no overseas study experience, yet her excellence was truly remarkable, leaving those who boasted advanced knowledge feeling incredibly ashamed. Perhaps they should consider how to better serve their increasingly powerful nation. They went abroad to learn better knowledge and achieve greater progress, but as China rises at a transcendental pace, their so-called study abroad has become a joke. They did learn something, but compared to the people on the stage, they are far behind. Chapter 279 Glory. You are in the center of a crowd, enjoying the unparalleled glory. At this moment, those ordinary scholars who could no longer keep up with Wu Tong's pace, as well as the math enthusiasts who had come behind to witness the miracle, could not help but echo these words. Standing at the center stage, under the gaze of thousands, she gracefully exuded the profound mysteries of mathematics, exuding a majestic and silent aura. Rows of international mathematicians and renowned scholars fixed their attention on Wu Tong, listening intently. Although they could no longer understand what she was saying, this did not affect their hearts. Their hearts surged with pride. Wu Tong on the stage was Chinese, the pride of China, the glory of China. At this moment, not a single Chinese person felt bored or sleepy because they did not understand. Their hearts burned with pride, their spirits blazing, their eyes ablaze with energy, their eyes fixed on the scene. Their presence had taken tremendous effort, and every glance, every second, was crucial. It was these Chinese girls who would solve the millennium-old problem that had captivated the world. Whenever they thought of this, their countrymen straightened their backs with pride. Thinking of the crowds of onlookers outside the cordon before they entered the factory, unable to squeeze in due to the limited space, they felt proud to be able to sit here, even if they couldn't understand. As for their inability to understand, it wasn't because Professor Wu's lectures were poor, but because their own foundations didn't allow them to grasp the profound depths of the world's greatest problems. This was their first time in the Great Hall, and the girl at the center of the stage was their child. The Jin Yuan couple and the Jin Yongqing elders were overwhelmed with joy and pride, their faces overflowing with words. They wanted to tell everyone that the child on stage was their daughter, their Tong. Jin Yu and Wu Jingzhong were among the excited crowd. Wu Jingzhong hadn't originally planned to take leave, having already taken a long vacation in August. However, his direct supervisor was one of the few people who knew Wu Jingzhong was Wu Tong's father, and had specially sent him here to participate in this grand event. Not to mention the instructions from above to be considerate of Comrade Wu, even he himself was very understanding. Who wouldn't want to be part of such a momentous occasion for their child? If he had a child with such promise, he'd make time for 10 days, not just half a day off, as long as he wasn't absolutely required to be there. On stage, the presentation flowed smoothly. Wu Tong's ideas were clear, his content detailed, and his eloquent speech revealed the mysteries of mathematics. Aside from adjusting his PowerPoint presentation, Wu Tong barely glanced at the screen behind him, delivering the entire presentation almost impromptu. This mastery and research was truly eye-opening for the many mathematicians in the audience. The mystery of infinite topological manifolds was like a key, unlocking the NS equations and revealing the secrets within. A glimpse revealed the whole picture, the door had been opened, and the results naturally emerged. The final proof of the NS equations brought the atmosphere to a climax. As Wu Tong presented the final introductory proof, the atmosphere in the entire venue reached a climax. To summarize, we can confirm that solutions to the three-dimensional incompressible Navier-Stokes equations exist, and they are as smooth as we expected. The puzzle left behind by the last century has been solved in this century. I can confidently assure everyone that the mystery has been solved. The unsolved problem has become history, and we have opened a new chapter. Wu Tong's voice was soft, but clear and resolute, like a fuse, completely igniting the heated atmosphere at the climax of the event. Almost as soon as Wu Tong finished speaking, Thunderous applause erupted, lasting for a long time. The entire audience practically stood up, paying their highest respects to Wu Tong, who had proved this millennial puzzle on stage. Just now, history had turned a page, and all the tens of thousands present were witnesses. People of all races, nationalities, and genders in the venue applauded enthusiastically, expressing their excitement. The world cheered for the young woman on stage. Following Pergman's solution to the Pompadour conjecture, another major millennium puzzle, which had been lingering for centuries, had finally been successfully answered. This is a miracle for China, and for the world. It's a tremendous advancement in global learning. I believe that today, Wu Tong's name will once again resound throughout the world. As the prover of the Navier-Stokes equation, all the world's awards will be proud to be bestowed upon her. Even those with no connection to mathematics will recognize Wu Tong, this young Chinese woman who has barely reached adulthood yet has already reached the pinnacle of mathematics. Wu Tong bowed slightly, returning the greetings from the audience. After the prolonged applause subsided for a long while, she moved on to another topic. Any questions, please feel free to ask, Professor Wu. First, the leaders in the front row understood. There were no more questions, let alone criticisms. Wu Tong's papers and proofs were rigorous and thorough, renowned for their impeccable accuracy. They had no objections. Those who spoke up were mostly renowned scholars who had understood most of Wu Tong's presentation but still had many questions that needed to be addressed. They weren't questioning, but rather seeking advice, seeking guidance. Wu Tong recounted each question, drawing on various related mathematical concepts effortlessly and almost effortlessly. Her mastery was so profound that many international experts in the front row sighed inwardly. They could barely count the number of people in the room, or even in the world, who could compare to Wu Tong. Number theory, partial differential equations, differential geometry, abstract algebra as part of group theory, topology. Is there any branch of mathematics that Wu isn't adept at? Andrew Wiles leaned over to Deline and lamented in a low voice. It was a loss for Princeton to not have been able to invite such a top talent to study and teach at Princeton. Perhaps, before leaving, he could bestow Wu Tong with an honorary professorship, allowing Princeton to share in her glory. Algebraic geometry isn't Wu Tong's weakness either. At the previous discussion, Wu Tong also demonstrated profound knowledge in algebraic geometry. Deline felt that there was no mathematical field Wu Tong wasn't adept at. She was a step above the renowned all-rounder Terence Tao. We are crowning a new leader in mathematics. What Ruthendik said to me before we arrived seems incredibly relevant today. We are witnessing the birth of a new emperor of mathematics, Deline said earnestly, gazing deeply at Wu Tong, who meticulously answered each question on the stage. Yes, the new emperor of mathematics has been crowned here. This century has seen the likes of Euler and Gauss, the genius of miracles. Feynman beamed. He personally witnessed the successful completion of the NS equations. This new advancement in mathematics brought such joy that he could feel his heartbeat quicken in his chest, a surge of excitement. Chapter 280. Thanks. It wasn't until nearly 1 p.m. that the questions finally concluded. Many more still had questions, but they didn't want to delay the completion of the lecture any further. Feynman, representing the leading figures in the front row, rose and spoke. Let us congratulate Wu Tong on his successful proof of the Navier-Stokes equations in this century. Professor Wu, on behalf of the Cray Institute, I solemnly invite you to come to the Cray Institute to receive the Millennium Problem Prize. If you are unable to travel, you can have someone collect it on your behalf. The award ceremony has been arranged, we just need your confirmation. In the year 2000, the Cray Mathematics Institute announced 7 difficult mathematical problems, offering a reward of $1 million for each solution. Hence, the Millennium Problems have earned a popular nickname, the Millennium Prize Problems. Andrew Wiles, Edward Witten, and other internationally renowned scholars involved in this endeavor also cast their smiles and expectant glances at Wu Tong. Thank you, Professor Feynman, and thank you all. I'm sorry I have important work and admissions matters to attend soon, so I can't travel. I'll discuss this with the university leadership, confirm a time, and arrange for a representative to attend. Traveling abroad has always been a cumbersome and dangerous undertaking, especially since Wu Tong has been exposed to so many confidential information. She had no intention of going abroad unless absolutely necessary. If it weren't for these senior colleagues' sincere invitation, Wu Tong wouldn't have even considered this award. However, since the award exists, even if she doesn't need it, Kyoto University does. Since it can be accepted on her behalf, then Kyoto University should arrange for someone to do it. $1 million, at the current exchange rate, is equivalent to 6 or 7 million RMB. Taking advantage of the situation across the sea and using this prize money to support the education of impoverished students across the country is a beautiful thing, isn't it? There's no need to be patronizing in this regard. No problem, Feynman wasn't surprised by the result. Wu Tong was now a national treasure-level mathematician, and it was easy for mathematicians to translate their knowledge into applied fields. Wu Tong had undoubtedly attracted considerable attention, and SYNOPSIS had undoubtedly imposed certain travel restrictions to ensure her safety. He wasn't particularly concerned about whether Wu Tong would personally accept the award. What mattered to him was the director of the Cray Institute, who, after years of preparation, finally had the opportunity to present the award. He was eager to present it and bolster the Cray Institute's reputation. If that old man hadn't insisted on accepting the award in person, he would have brought it directly and presented it to Wu Tong on such a grand occasion, saving all the trouble. Let us all enjoy the champagne of victory and celebrate this tremendous advancement in mathematics. Later, the organizers in Shengjing were hosting a celebration banquet, and his words also marked the end of the lecture. This was Wu Tong's stage for honor, not a place for scholars to seek his advice. It was over. If there was one thing Wu Tong lacked, it was that he lacked the rebelliousness and pride of a genius. He was too approachable. Following Feynman's words, the leaders in the front row and the entire audience rose to their feet and applauded again. Wu Tong bowed and departed the stage. The conference hall's doors opened, and staff began ushering the attendees out in an orderly manner. As Wu Tong stepped out of the Great Hall, major media outlets, both domestic and international, who had been denied entry, crowded the steps and eagerly surrounded him, inviting him for an interview. "Hello, Professor Wu. I'm a reporter from the BBC. Please accept the interview with the Times." "Professor Wu, how are your results? Have you met the approval of numerous mathematicians worldwide? Does the general solution to the Millennium Problem, the NS equation, exist and be smooth?" "Professor Wu, oh my god, can we shake hands and take a photo?" Farther away, beyond the security cordon, tourists who had been unable to enter the venue but had come to see Wu Tong after the event ended couldn't help but join in the enthusiastic shouts. A swarm of cameras excitedly converged on Wu Tong. The undercover reporters in the Great Hall and the security personnel responsible for protecting him immediately reacted, joining forces to form a human wall to block the increasingly agitated reporters from rushing forward. Who knew if there were any dangerous elements among them? Even if safety were relatively guaranteed, if they were to rush forward in such excitement, and if they pushed Wu Tong down the stairs, it would be a much bigger accident. This would be absolutely unacceptable. Wu Tong was also somewhat surprised by the excitement. Seeing the sheer number of people, she worried about a stampede. Besides cooperating with the security personnel, Wu Tong gently bowed to the crowd, thanking them for their love and for having traveled thousands of miles to see her. She raised her voice as high as she could, addressing the crowd and reminding them, "Thank you all for coming. Please be safe and don't crowd, our God is telling everyone to be safe. Gentlemen, show some courtesy and order. We must not bring shame to China or even to Shanghai." Immediately, the discerning people in the front row, heeding Wu Tong's instructions, began to rally and organize. More and more people joined in, and the excitement eased. The crowd made way for Wu Tong to board the bus. After Wu Tong left, the attendees, guided by the organizers and venue security, left in an orderly manner. The crowd was incredibly cooperative. Seeing Wu Tong in person and hearing her instructions in person made them feel like their visit was truly worth it. Unlike those entertainment stars who evaded and dodged, sometimes even trying to stir up trouble to prove their supposed charm, Wu Tong's first priority was to focus on their safety. Such a top scholar, yet so caring about ordinary people, without even a hint of genius or arrogance, truly touched them. They hadn't made a mistake in their love for her. She truly was their national girl, their national pride. At the celebration banquet, Feynman and others reiterated their sentiment, "Wu, as you Chinese say, meeting is fate." The last seminar was so satisfying. Let's take this opportunity to hold another one. Let's schedule it for tomorrow. Oh, the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow is your national day, right? Do I remember correctly? During your national day, the military parade is magnificent and truly awe-inspiring. Yes, Mr. Feynman. Tomorrow is the 62nd anniversary of our great motherland. Thank you for your compliments. I'm so proud. Our soldiers are truly amazing. Wu Tong nodded, accepting the invitation. She felt that the opportunity to interact with such leading scholars, especially those from such diverse fields, would be extremely rewarding. Chapter 281 Joint. Her mathematical progress didn't stop there. Wu Tong reached new heights in fields like partial differential equations, and she decided her next goal would be algebraic geometry, a crucial branch of mathematics she hadn't yet delved into. The Hodge conjecture, a major unsolved problem in algebraic geometry and one of the Millennium problems, presented a significant challenge. Furthermore, her deep understanding of number theory made it difficult for her to ignore the Riemann hypothesis and the ABC conjecture, two of the ultimate Millennium problems. The edifice of mathematics remains endless. Her current achievements, built on the foundations of her predecessors, are merely modest accomplishments, and shouldn't lead her to complacency. Only by maintaining humility and perseverance can one continue to advance. Never-ending learning is more than just a simple phrase. The more Wu Tong advances on this path, the more profound her understanding becomes. Therefore, while traveling abroad is strictly prohibited, Wu Tong is happy to take advantage of this rare opportunity to engage in a cross-disciplinary discussion with scholars from around the world. Of course, Shanghai would have preferred if these mathematicians had stayed longer. The previous academic conference on the proof of the Goldbach conjecture had already reaped the benefits, a sum they hadn't fully digested in 6 months. Now, with the opportunity to reap the benefits again, they would truly be failing Wu Tong's contributions if they didn't seize them. Many of the world-renowned mathematicians attending the conference were renowned figures they wouldn't have been able to invite even by invitation. Thanks to Wu Tong's repeated visits to Shanghai, many businesses and institutions have been able to connect with these leaders, increasing the potential for collaboration and creating significant economic value and advancements in scientific research related to people's livelihoods. Shanghai's leaders were especially present to lead the celebration, shaking Wu Tong's hand and offering their greetings. They are truly grateful to Wu Tong for her timeless influence in supporting Shanghai. Their contribution to Wu Tong was merely a paltry reward for Wu Tong's proof of Zhou's conjecture. They felt truly ashamed. Now, Wu Tong had become a highly regarded talent, receiving all sorts of treatment, and there was no reason for them to offer any extravagance. However, they still needed to express their gratitude, even if it was just words. It was better than ignoring the truth and remaining indifferent. If they dared to remain indifferent, they would be tantamount to destroying their own future. Excellent, Wu Tong. Li Yishan smiled and congratulated Wu Tong after Wu Tong had finished greeting the international scholars and had some free time. Next to him was Su Chenang, who had recently returned to China and officially joined Peking University. Teacher Li, senior brother Su, hello. I haven't even had time to welcome you home. Wu Tong turned around and greeted them with a smile. It had been a while since he'd seen them. Su Chenang, in particular, was truly decisive. He had expressed his desire to return to China at last year's International Congress of Mathematicians, and this year, he completely abandoned the lucrative offers and career prospects abroad to return to teach. Wu Tong gave Su Chenang a thumbs up and praised, "Senior brother Su, you're truly amazing. Not everyone can give up generous treatment, even at a fraction of the cost, to return home and serve their country. I don't deserve it, I don't deserve it. I simply made a choice. Peking University offered me excellent treatment as part of its talent recruitment program. I'm ashamed not to return home immediately after graduation," Su Chenang said with a touch of shame. "We were all so obsessed with foreign knowledge and cash that we were all eager to go abroad. But in the end, it was our own narrow-mindedness that ultimately led us to believe. Now, I only hope that, in addition to pursuing academic research, I can also bring up a group of students worthy of the dedicated training our country and alma mater have given us." Wu Tong has only been in China, never abroad, yet he has already achieved such remarkable results, attracting many of the leaders he admired back then and still looks up to today, flying thousands of miles to Beijing time and again to attend his lectures. Clearly, the hype surrounding them as the four greatest talents of the millennium was merely a false reputation, devoid of true genius. Compared to Wu Tong, they were merely ordinary people. "Wu Tong, if possible, I hope you can give me a chance to study at your institute." Nervously clenching his fist, Su Chenang looked at Wu Tong expectantly, wondering if he would ever have the honor. Wu Tong was unrivaled in the field of number theory today, and he hoped that the opportunity to study under him would allow him to further advance in number theory. A good mentor's guidance was far easier than his blind man's elephant searching. Su Chenniang's current state of mind was even more tense than when he was choosing his master's and doctoral advisors abroad and waiting for their responses. Many people hadn't yet grasped the situation. By the time they did, his meager achievements would no longer be recognized by Wu Tong. Of course, no problem. Senior brother Su is so talented, and it's an honor for me to be willing to help me. Can we discuss the details after National Day? Wu Tong agreed without hesitation. Being able to return home through the talent introduction program proved Su Chenniang's fundamentals were flawless. Such a talented individual's willingness to join her institute and her team was a boon, a gift straight to her doorstep. She was in dire need of talented individuals. Brother Su, there's a seminar on the 2nd, initiated by Mr. Feynman. Welcome to attend. Wu Tong smiled and extended her hand. I wish us a pleasant working relationship. I will definitely live up to your expectations. Su Chenniang joyfully extended his hand and shook Wu Tong's. He was overwhelmed with joy and excitement. He hadn't expected Wu Tong to welcome him so readily, and upon agreeing, he was offered such a precious opportunity to attend a seminar with such a distinguished leader. Wu Tong, and me too, I'm shamelessly asking you for a spot. Li Yishan raised his hand gently, unassumingly. He also wanted to join Wu Tong's institute and attend the seminar with her. From now on, he would devote himself wholeheartedly to helping Wu Tong. Being overly distant with her would only create distance. No problem, Teacher Li. Even if you hadn't asked, I would have invited you to join. I just hope you don't mind my small place. I've just been busy with my projects lately and haven't had time to invite you in person. Wu Tong was delighted. Teacher Li's natural attitude hadn't changed, and her smile widened even more as she readily agreed. Teacher Li had helped her so much since she joined the school, and she wanted to take care of him and repay him. No need to invite me, I'm coming uninvited. Li Yishan smiled cheerfully, his hands spread wide. He had no pretensions to being a teacher. Burying the meat in the bowl and waiting for someone to invite him, wasn't that asking for a fight? Chapter 282 Solemn. After a brief preliminary agreement, Li Yishan and Su Chenniang gave up their seats to the many scholars from home and abroad who came forward to chat and socialize with Wu Tong. The centerpiece of the celebration banquet was Wu Tong from beginning to end, and no one could ignore her brilliance. Wu Tong greeted and thanked the visiting scholars one by one, wishing them a pleasant meal, and then left early. Next up were more meetings and networking opportunities between companies and visiting scholars, and Wu Tong didn't need to attend each one. With this rare free time, Wu Tong longed to return home to rest and spend time with her parents. Her focus had been on research breakthroughs, and during the final stretch, she'd been away from home for some time, often having a hastily arranged, simple mid-autumn festival dinner with her family. Now that she had some free time, Wu Tong wanted to spend quality time with her family. Given the sheer number of travelers traveling during the National Day holiday, with every tourist attraction packed to the brim, the family had already decided not to travel anywhere and stay home. Let's go see the flag-raising ceremony tomorrow and skip all the other excitement. Jin Yoking and his wife were the first to voice their opinion. The two old bones didn't bother to jostle with the crowds. Thinking of the overflowing crowds in Shangjing, thanks to the influence of his beloved granddaughter, Jin Yoking beamed with pride. As for his daughter and her husband, and his son and his wife, whether they wanted to go out for a walk was up to them. The old couple didn't interfere, they weren't deaf or dumb, and they weren't the fathers-in-law. Their children were grown and didn't need their oversight. Anyone visiting Shangjing couldn't miss the flag-raising ceremony. It was a must-see, a Chinese obsession. The national flag rises with the sun, the rising sun never sets. After decades of trials and tribulations, striding forward on a new journey. On October 1st, National Day, hundreds of millions of Chinese people watched with rapt attention as the Grand National Day flag-raising ceremony unfolded in Tiananmen Square. Although it wasn't a full-year celebration this year, and there was no grand military parade, the atmosphere of National Day was undiminished. Throughout the streets and alleys of Shangjing, shops and street lights were draped with vibrant red flags. Sweet osmanthus wafted in the air, chrysanthemums bloomed, creating a magnificent spectacle everywhere. In the early hours of the morning, before the city had even woken, the square was already packed. The majestic city walls stood tall, everyone awaiting the sacred moment. Nearly 200,000 people from across the country gathered to celebrate the 62nd anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. The annual attendance at Tiananmen Square for the flag-raising ceremony already reached over 100,000, and this year, thanks to Wu Tong, that number doubled. The influx of people into Shangjing further swelled that figure. If it weren't for the inherent overlap, the numbers would have only risen further, pushing Shangjing's capacity to accommodate them. What a crowd! Wu Tong and his family, quietly escorted by vehicles, arrived at the flag-raising square. The family gazed at the crowds with wonder. They felt they had arrived early, arriving in the middle of the night, yet still couldn't beat the crowds. Perhaps they had already lined up there the night before. Wu Tong wanted to watch the flag-raising ceremony, and the higher-ups had suggested he enter directly through a special entrance, where he could wait inside. The higher-ups, impressed by Wu Tong's unwavering patriotism, were delighted by the centripetal force such a top talent displayed towards the nation, as well as Wu Tong's family's recognition and love for the country. However, after consulting with her family, Wu Tong opted against this special arrangement. She had made a last-minute decision, as the likelihood of danger was relatively low. Following the normal flow of people and experiencing the usual treatment was, in itself, a form of special treatment. The family quietly joined the queue. Arriving relatively late, they were still at the front of the queue. The accompanying security personnel naturally disguised themselves as spectators of the flag-raising ceremony, surrounding the family in the center and occupying advantageous positions to prevent the unruly crowd from approaching Wu Tong. A little after 4 o'clock, a crisp whistle pierced the silence of the square in front of the Meridian Gate. The flag-raising guards rose to their feet, fully engaged in pre-ceremony training. The family, standing at the front of the line, had originally intended to let the elderly man rest and wait in the car, rejoining closer to the time. However, the two elders felt they were still in good health and insisted on queuing with the others. They brought a few lightweight folding chairs, so when they tired of standing, they could sit, and when they got tired of sitting, they could walk around. The family chatted, making it less boring. "It's almost there. It's finally time to enter," Jin Yongqing said with cheerful anticipation. They had been here once before last year, so they were considered the more experienced ones. They were enjoying their old age. Back home, most elderly people had the experience and knowledge to wait here for the flag-raising ceremony at such a glorious moment. The contrasting excitement alone made the Jin Yongqings and their backs feel smooth, and like the 200,000 people present, they were filled with eager anticipation, constantly glancing towards the Tiananmen Gate. As the sky broke into pale white, the cordon allowed the crowd to enter, and everyone rushed to the actual location for the flag-raising ceremony. Soon after 6 o'clock, the loud and passionate flag-raising horn pierced the sky, and the square was solemn and dignified, with everyone looking towards the Tiananmen Gate Tower. The entire crowd was silent, awaiting a magnificent moment. 30 honor guards stood at attention on either side of the south side of the Jinshu Bridge. 96 members of the National Flag Guard crossed the bridge, changing from marching to goose step. 3 squad leaders, dressed in uniforms from the Army, Navy, and Air Force, performed the sword salute. The resounding, synchronized sound of footsteps approached from afar. The earth-shaking footsteps stirred resolute confidence and soared with lofty ambition. Each step seemed to resonate with the hearts of those present, filling them with an involuntary sense of solemnity. The entire crowd fell silent. In the square, eyes blazed, unblinking, as the majestic procession advanced. The Chinese Armed Forces Honor Guard, the world's finest, filled everyone with pride. "Salute to the national flag," the command rang out. And the military band struck up the majestic national anthem. Everyone present stood at attention, their gazes fixed on the marching procession, each one humming along to the music. The flag-bearer vigorously waved his right arm, throwing the 5-star red flag into the sky. Greeting the first rays of morning sunlight, the vibrant red flag rose slowly. Every time he witnessed such a solemn moment, Wu Tong felt a surge of emotion flowing through his heart, and even more eagerly wanted to do something to ensure that this sacred flag would stand forever in the east. 46 seconds later, the red flag reached the top of the flagpole, and the audience erupted in enthusiastic cheers. The cheers of 200,000 people almost merged into a tsunami. Singing to our beloved motherland, from now on it will move towards prosperity and strength, to the sound of the melody of the motherland, the flag-raising guard solemnly returned to their original route. "I love China, long live the motherland." Wu Tong's family was fully present, and like everyone else, they waved their small red flags high and fervently shouted their best wishes for the country. Chapter 283 Research Institute. In a nearby square, the monument to the people's heroes stands majestically. To its north, an 18-meter-tall flower basket inscribed blessings to the motherland stands. Composed of flowers such as peonies, roses, and carnations, along with a symbol of 5 grains symbolizing a bountiful harvest, the basket, bathed in the morning sun, appears exceptionally festive and dazzling, reflecting the profound excitement of everyone present. Why are there always tears in my eyes? Because I love this land so deeply. Jin Yuan opens his arms as if embracing the blue sky, quoting a line from the modern poet A.I. Qing, his artistic spirit etched in each word. The golden rays of the rising sun bathe the earth, and the dove of peace spreads its wings high. What a beautiful new morning, what a vibrant new beginning. Su Mifang feels that even after knowing and marrying him for 20 years, she still can't handle Jin Yuan's artistic aura. She touches the goosebumps that break out on her arm and, without thinking, slaps him on the back, instantly dispelling all his artistic aura. Then you'll eat dirt this morning while we go have some old Shengjing specialties for breakfast. So unromantic. Jin Yuan covered his face, his voice grumbling endlessly. Why had he found such a sentimentless wife? Her slap had ruined the whole atmosphere. But judging by his expression, it was clear he wasn't angry. He was deeply grateful for his wife's straightforward nature. Because she had treated his niece like her own daughter for years, he, Jin Yuan, treated her like his own mother. Well said, you're still so unruly at your age? Grandma Jin glanced at her son, not a hint of pity. Jin Yuan, a master of both singing and singing, pretended to shout, Mom, I'm your biological son, and Mi Fang is my biological daughter-in-law, the old lady retorted without hesitation. Ha ha ha, as the old lady and Jin Yuan chatted, laughter filled the air. Wu Tong celebrated National Day with her family. The next day, she reunited with Li Yixing and Su Chenayang and went to the official hotel, the venue for the symposium. This time, the symposium wasn't restricted to specific fields. Inside the vast conference room, a long, oval table was occupied by some of the world's leading scholars, seated at the center. Those arriving later had to sit in the back, in the audience seats. As Wu Tong arrived, the scholars who had arrived earlier greeted her. Wu Tong, happy National Day yesterday. Wu, good morning. Greetings in both the internationally recognized language and the broken Chinese language conveyed a genuine sense of respect and appreciation for Wu Tong. Good morning, Wu Tong responded to each greeting. Thanks to her excellent memory, she knew everyone present had met her several times or was familiar with her. She could identify every name in this small circle. This effect made the first group of people to greet her smile even more broadly. Wu Tong remembered them, and they saw this as a sign of respect and appreciation. At 9 o'clock sharp, the conference room doors closed, and the seminar officially began. Feynman, Andrew, and several other conference organizers took the lead, each sharing their insights and learnings from the NS Equations Symposium and their current research topics, offering a glimpse into the future. Scholars who achieve international prominence in mathematics, while possessing varying personalities, often share a pure passion for scholarship. Once the discussion began, everyone expressed their opinions and made their own contributions, without any deliberate attempts at disruption. Wu Tong actively participated, exchanging ideas with numerous scholars, and the diverse insights she gained etched in her memory, forming a foundation for her continued research. The 2 days of 2 major symposiums proved incredibly rewarding for everyone present. On the 4th, several international scholars departed Beijing, while others secured partnerships with major companies and began their official duties. Some continued their domestic travels with great interest. The ripples radiating from this major academic symposium were only just beginning to ripple, and its impact will continue to linger for the foreseeable future. After seeing off several top scholars she was familiar with, such as Andrew, Terence Tao, and Mr. Chu Deline, Feynman, it took another day to organize the findings from the seminar. On the 6th, Wu Tong finally found time to officially take over her interdisciplinary research institute. Although the institute had been completed and delivered in early August, Wu Tong was concentrating on solving the NS equations at the time and could not spare the time to officially take over. She only allowed team members to move in first and use the more advanced and comprehensive experimental equipment to conduct research projects. The teachers, Tao Ran, Ruan Chengsu, and the management team temporarily assisted in the management and operation of the institute. Wu Tong did not ignore the research team just because she was concentrating on solving mathematical problems. For her next project, Wu Tong wanted to solve the long-unused new energy battery problem. She asked the research team, led by Tao Ran and Ruan Chengsu, to first conduct some basic research and study in this area, as well as collect data. When Wu Tong arrived, Li Yixing and Su Cheniyang were already waiting outside the institute. They had arranged to meet Wu Tong today after the seminar, and they had spent the past 2 days digesting the insights gained from the seminar. Also waiting for Wu Tong was Fu Chuantang, the head of the management team sent from above. Mr. Wu. Fu Chuantang stepped forward and formally introduced Wu Tong to him. His team had undergone extensive testing and training before arriving. Their mission was clear, to assist Wu Tong in running the institute, with Wu Tong at the center. They would handle minor matters, ensuring he was not disturbed, and research would be centered around Wu Tong's direction. He was also the head of the security team. Brother Fu, Wu Tong nodded gently. Although she and Fu Chuantang had rarely met, they were not unfamiliar. He was a talent selected by the security department and specially nurtured by Chu Bupi. Shortly after the institute's establishment, he had been responsible for communicating her intentions and making arrangements for its establishment, and he was now on the job. Teacher Li, senior brother Su, let's go in and talk. Wu Tong didn't ignore the other two, and greeted them all to enter the institute. Upon entering, the modern, elegant and simple interior caught his eye. Fu Chuantang skillfully gave Wu Tong a brief, practical introduction. Wu Tong had only a rough idea of the institute's layout from blueprints, but the difference between the actual building and the blueprints was stark. The entire interdisciplinary institute consisted of 5 floors above ground and 2 underground. The 2 underground floors were temporarily used for data and material storage. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 Backing. The ground floor houses security personnel and the management team's offices. The second floor houses the Mathematical Physics Research Center. The third floor houses the Materials Research Center, along with researcher offices and conference rooms. The fourth floor houses key research laboratories. The fifth floor is Wu Tong's private space, housing her office, a lounge, and an assistant's office, which also serves as a lounge for personal protection personnel. The lounge in the library has officially replaced Wu Tong's previous simple quarters. After consulting with Wu Tong, her frequently used items have been moved from the lecturer's quarters to the Research Institute's lounge, and her previous quarters have been returned to the Peking University Office of Administration. In the future, Wu Tong can conduct research in her office while enjoying direct access to the adjacent lounge. All floors are protected by bulletproof, privacy-resistant glass. Each entrance to the institute is individually gated, with a fifth-floor corridor sealed off from the lower floors and only accessible under special circumstances. Within the institute, Wu Tong, with access to the fifth floor and all other floors, has access limited to the floors corresponding to their respective levels. These various security measures are designed to ensure absolute safety and confidentiality within the institute. Boss Wu, after settling Li Yixing and Su Cheniyang into the second-floor office of the Center for Mathematical Physics, Wu Tong continued his inspection upwards. Seeing Wu Tong's fellow researchers, they all smiled and greeted him excitedly. Their boss Wu, in just 2 months, even on vacation, had once again performed miracles, conquering the incredibly difficult problem of the NS equations. In mathematics, they dared to say, Boss Wu had reached the pinnacle. Inspired by Wu Tong, everyone worked with utmost enthusiasm on their research projects. Following a leader like Wu Shen, if they didn't put in the extra effort, they would eventually become obsolete, without Boss Wu's warning. Mr. Wu, we've tested all common new energy battery manufacturing methods on the market. Here's the experimental data. As you know, we've also conducted extensive experiments on graphite, carbon molecules, lithium, and so on. Lithium is indeed a promising new energy source, but lithium dendrites can also be detrimental. Lithium dendrites are branch-like lithium metals that form when lithium ions are reduced during charging. However, lithium doesn't always appear as dendrites at the negative electrode. This is generally referred to as lithium deposition. Dendrite growth is a fundamental issue affecting the safety and stability of lithium-ion batteries. Dendrite growth destabilizes the electrode-electrolyte interface during cycling, destroying the solid electrolyte interface film. Dendrite growth consumes electrolyte and leads to irreversible deposition of metallic lithium, resulting in dead lithium and low coulombic efficiency. Dendrite formation can even pierce the separator, causing internal short circuits in the battery, leading to thermal runaway and potentially combustion or explosion. If lithium is chosen as a new energy battery, and if we want to break through the current short-range limitations of lithium batteries and achieve the goal of long-range, durable lithium batteries, lithium dendrites must be overcome. Okay. Let's continue with the research project. I'll review the experimental data first and then discuss the next experimental direction. Wu Tong nodded, indicating that she understood the current dilemma and reached out to take the USB flash drive that Tao Ran handed her. She had anticipated this dilemma when she chose lithium batteries as her starting point, and encountering it wasn't surprising to Wu Tong. What she needed was the most basic data, the current reaction parameters. With the research team in place, they helped with the preliminary work, making the data she needed readily available. Now, with the support of a team, she truly understood the benefits of a collaborative effort, which was much smoother than if she had to do everything herself. Thank you for your hard work over the past 2 months. Everyone will receive a quarterly bonus this month. Also, if you like afternoon tea today, I'll cover it. Wu Tong smiled and distributed the treats to the researchers, encouraging their hard work. With just a quick glance, Wu Tong could tell that the team members hadn't rested for the past 2 months, working relentlessly on research and learning. This kind of dynamic requires a healthy cycle. Effort is rewarded. Wu Tong has never been stingy with rewards, especially now that the lab's funding has been replenished and is abundant again, so she's even more generous with her rewards. Thank you, Mr. Wu. Mr. Wu, we love you. Cheers echoed throughout the research center. With Mr. Wu back, they had meat and soup. With Mr. Wu back, the feeling was different. They felt more at ease, more confident. Their beloved Mr. Wu was their greatest support. Wu Tong chuckled. The team was relatively young and energetic, and such an atmosphere would bolster everyone's enthusiasm for research. Wu Tong didn't impose unnecessary restrictions on this aspect. While experiments needed to be rigorous and precise, the daily atmosphere didn't need to be overly stressful. A balance of ease and tension was necessary, as long as it didn't violate the Institute's rules and regulations. An overly tense atmosphere wouldn't benefit the team in the long run. Everyone continue to do your own things. Wu Tong waved his hand, took the data disk given by Tao Ran, and prepared to go upstairs to the office to conduct deductions and find possible breakthroughs. However, just as Wu Tong reached the 5th floor and had not yet sat down, the confidential phone rang. Without hesitation, Wu Tong answered it immediately. Lu Xiao's voice came from the microphone. Wu Tong, congratulations, you have made further progress in mathematics. Do you have time? We are also worthy of our responsibility. The H-20 has officially entered the final non-destructive testing. The first flight test will be tomorrow. We sincerely invite you to watch the first flight. Great. Congratulations, Brother Lu. Of course I have time. I will ask someone to arrange the plane ticket. Wu Tong would naturally not miss the invitation to the H-20's maiden flight. She had been looking forward to the face of H-20 for a long time, and finally had the opportunity to see it. The development of the H-20 went relatively smoothly, though not without its setbacks. After the rough draft was finalized, Wu Tong achieved a breakthrough in materials, developing the T10001 carbon fiber composite material. The H-20 naturally desired to utilize such a superior material, but with the current laboratory output, widespread deployment was impractical. Lu Xiao developed a design for regional use, further enhancing the H-20's exceptional maneuverability. I'll arrange it, using internal channels, Lu Xiao instructed upon receiving Wu Tong's affirmative response. Wu Tong's safety was paramount, and no one at the Civil Aviation Department could guarantee his safety, so they decided to use internal military channels. Transport planes carrying supplies to and from Zizhou were not uncommon and could be easily arranged. Even a special flight specifically for Wu Tong was not an excessive price to pay, as long as it ensured his safety. Wu Tong's importance deserved such serious attention. Chapter 285 Encounter. Let's go through the internal channels. Security personnel will be more easily arranged. Wu Tong packed a few of his belongings as arrangements were already made. He dragged his suitcase downstairs. A car had already pulled up in front of the institute, and Wu Tong boarded and immediately set off. It was nearly 4 hours later when Wu Tong landed at the Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Research Institute. There was also a dedicated military airfield nearby, and Wu Tong landed there, where Lu Xiao and engineers On personally met him at the airport. "Brother Lu, Mr. Zan," Wu Tong hurriedly stepped off the transport plane and greeted them. "Thank you for your help." "No hurry, no hurry, Wu Tong, slow down, don't fall." Engineer Zan's eyelids twitched. If such a top-notch talent fell, it would be a grave sin for him, and that old Cheng Huinan would definitely criticize him. The old man was now very proud. There was a senior disciple, Zhang Xiaoming, who had established a family and had been promoted to neck of the mission. Later, he took advantage of the situation and met a top talent like Wu Tong. Each of his achievements was almost unprecedented, making Lao Cheng's back straight and proud. It was really enviable. Master Zan was very jealous. Old Cheng was not particularly outstanding in other aspects, but his apprentice's luck was really enviable. In this life, with his two apprentices, one big and one small, Lao Cheng could smile and close his eyes. "It's okay, Master Zan." Wu Tong stood firmly on the ground. She usually didn't do anything without confidence. "Since you came all this way, let's go for a simple meal first. You must taste the specialties of Chang'an. The ancient capital of 13 dynasties, it has a long and glorious history. The Tang dynasty was celebrated by all nations. The splendid mountains and rivers were the capital of Chang'an. The 800-li Qinchuan plain was famous. You're the landlord, I'll follow your orders," as they would be collaborators in the future. Wu Tong didn't seem too polite. "I've had Gaokao from Chang'an before, it's soft, sticky, and sweet." His hometown wasn't far from Qin province, where the two provinces bordered each other. With the reform and opening up, trade between the two regions increased, and some people there learned the craftsmanship to sell Qin province's specialties. "When I was in junior high and high school, after nighttime self-study, I'd have a hot Gaokao, which would warm me up all night long and keep me comfortable." That's not true. Back then, you were growing up, and you had to study all day long. You only felt comfortable at night with something to eat. Now that life is better, you can't let your bodies suffer anymore. They all went through youth, especially their generation, who went to the countryside to work and went to the countryside. They knew the feeling of hunger very well. Besides Gaokao, there's so much more in Old Chang'an. The mutton here is also a specialty, and it has a completely different flavor from Zizhao. It's not easy for you to come here, Wu Tong, so you should try them all. Talking about food and reminiscing about the past, a few words brought them together like a familiarity. The autumn air was cooling, and the further north they went, the more pronounced it became. Chang'an was already shrouded in autumn. At this time, there was nothing more comforting than a warm bowl of mutton in a basin, mutton soup with steamed buns, or broth and meat, gourd chicken and mixed shredded vegetables. The chef at the Xi'an Aircraft Industry Research Institute was a master of Chang'an cuisine, and Wu Tong truly experienced the delicious flavors of Chang'an cuisine. The dessert was the famous Gaokao, simmered in a large stove at high heat. It was soft, sweet, and sticky, and Wu Tong was truly delighted. After checking into the Xi'an Aircraft Industry Research Institute's guest house, Wu Tong followed Lu Xiao, who had also been staying at the reception for a while, into the Xi'an Aircraft Industry Research Institute early the next morning. Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation was on high alert at this moment. All departments were at their posts early and were operating smoothly. Wu Tong went to the main control room with engineers on who had joined her. On the way there, Wu Tong spotted a familiar figure coming towards her. She couldn't help but raise the corners of her lips slightly, and gave a playful smile to Jinzin, who was almost stunned across from her. She nodded slightly and passed him by. This was not a good place to meet and talk with her brother. After watching the maiden flight today, she would meet and talk with him properly. She didn't expect that her brother actually participated in the research and development of H-20 and was now in Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation. Jinzin really gasped at this moment. He knew that his little sister was an amazing person, but Wu Tong's brilliance was still beyond his expectations. He knew that Wu Tong's mathematical foundation was shocking to the world. He was still proud of the NS equation academic seminar that had just been held a few days ago. However, he had never imagined that his own Tong was collaborating with Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation. Judging by the manner in which General Manager Zan and Lu accompanied him, It was clear that Tong was of extraordinary importance. Even his mentor's presence here was no more than Tong's treatment. Who was his mentor? A renowned expert in the field of domestic fighter aircraft, a master of the art who had participated in the development of multiple generations of fighters. He still felt like a dream to have caught his eye. And now, meeting Tong at Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation was like a dream too. If Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation needed Tong's mathematical skills, that made sense, but it wouldn't be enough for two chief designers to personally welcome him. Or was it that Tong Jinzin didn't dare let his imagination run wild? Was that young man you? He seemed to be a student of Feng Yuanyang's, Engineer Zhan asked Lu Xiao uncertainly. That young man was a top professor at the National Defense University, with whom they had extensive collaboration. The original design concept for the H-20 originated from him. He was also the deputy chief designer of the H-20 project. That was why Engineer Zhan had an impression of Jinzin, who had come with Feng Yuanyang. My little brother was in the same college entrance exam as me, the runner-up in our province that year. He's a current student at the National Defense University and currently studying under Professor Feng, Wu Tong said softly, smiling. There was nothing to hide. Even if she didn't say it, Engineer Zhan would know it later. Oh, I didn't know that. A direct descendant of the same lineage. Look at my tongue, I can't find the right adjective. What Engineer Zhan was trying to say was that this family was truly remarkable. They had Wu Tong, a national treasure, and another child who must be quite talented. Feng Yuanyang wasn't the type to accept students based on personal connections. The fact that he accepted little brother Wu Tong as an undergraduate clearly showed his higher regard for his talent. Tisk, it was Feng Yuanyang's quick action. If the relationship between Wu Tong and that child were known today, who knows how many people would flock to him. At the very least, from what he knew, he could name several. If he couldn't have Wu Tong, then having little brother Wu Tong was a blessing in disguise. Having multiple talented apprentices who are naturally related to Wu Tong is a recipe for disaster. Of course, Zhan Gong had to admit that he was also tempted. Who wouldn't want a closer relationship with Wu Tong? He was no exception. Chapter 286, Building Momentum. Speak of the devil, and he'll show up. They just mentioned Professor Feng Yuanyang, and now they'd run into him in front of the control room, conducting his final inspection. As the project's deputy chief designer, he and Engineer Zhan had arrived at the institute almost before dawn, leading the engineers and researchers through repeated inspections. The burning passion within them, from top to bottom, surged with passion, seemingly boundless energy. Old Feng, Engineer Zhan greeted with a smile, patting Feng Yuanyang's shoulder firmly. The old man was quick-witted. After all that time working together, he hadn't pointed it out. He couldn't believe Feng Yuanyang didn't know his student's background. At his level, admitting a student, he wouldn't have to check his entire family, if not his entire ancestry, but at least 3 generations of social connections. Military academy students were supposed to check their social connections when they entered, and Wu Tong and Jinzin were definitely related, practically bordering on direct family. There was no way he couldn't have been unaware. He was indeed the epitome of the man who secretly rejoices while enjoying the meat in his bowl. Old Feng was a generation younger than him, a renowned talent in his day, a hallmark of the National Defense University. However, the way they addressed each other was a matter of habit, a matter of habitual familiarity. Engineer Zhan, General Manager Lu, this is. General Manager Wu, right. Feng Yuanyang, a military academy graduate, still undergoes daily training. Just over 40, he's in the prime of his life, his back straight and his spirit high. He exudes a strong sense of military presence. Although Wu Tong's circulated information has frequently trended, regulatory oversight has limited public information or photos of him. He had never formally met Wu Tong, but seeing him so young, and seeing him there, and seeing Engineer Zhan suddenly leave to pick someone up, and being addressed so formally by Engineer Zhan and General Manager Lu, he quickly realized it was Wu Tong. As Jinzin's mentor and a leading expert in the field, he had always kept an eye on Wu Tong. Especially since joining the H-20 project team and learning about Wu Tong's achievements, he was deeply impressed and looked forward to the chance to meet Wu Tong in person. His student didn't aspire to be as dazzling as Wu Tong in the future, but if he could surpass his achievements, he would be satisfied. As for being demanding of Jinzin, that was perfectly natural. After all, that idiot boy was blessed with such a brilliant sister and such a buggy hack. If Jinzin didn't push him to even greater heights, he would chase him down with a stick. "Hello, Professor Feng, I've long admired you." Wu Tong smiled and stepped forward to shake Feng Yuanyang's hand. She meant it. Her brother had been a student under him, and every time they spoke, he'd always hear him talk about his mentor. Wu Tong truly admired him. "I've long admired the name of Wushan." Feng Yuanyang's smile widened. The title of Wushan had resounded throughout the land, and he and Wu Tong were now legitimate family members. "That kid doesn't have a good reputation. Don't think he didn't know that Jinzin, that brat, called him a devil mentor behind his back. Hey, if that kid wasn't quite promising, with such excellent resources, and if he hadn't put a little more pressure on him, how could he have improved so quickly?" Fortunately, despite his boastful words, that brat was not the least bit bothered by his work, but was completely unwavering in completing his homework and research. "No, the young man speaks highly of you, saying that it's thanks to your keen eye, your ability to spot a talent in him, and your dedicated teaching that he will definitely live up to your expectations." Wu Tong smiled, summarizing Jinzin's praise for his mentor behind his mutterings. "So, are you praising him or praising him?" Feng Yuanyang raised his eyebrows. The brat still didn't feel enough pressure and still wanted to show off his eloquence. Go back and add more burdens to him. His younger sister has already become world famous. With a Fields Award in hand and remarkable achievements on the secret front, he has assisted in the design and development of 2 major fighter jets. How can he, as their brother, feel so embarrassed to be so far behind? Don't embarrass your sister. Congratulations to the brat. He is honored to be able to go against others. Feng Yuanyang was happy just thinking about it. Fortunately, his silly apprentice is a big-hearted person. Wu Tong, as a sister, also values her brother wholeheartedly. She has single-handedly pulled that kid from the level of a poor student to the provincial runner-up. She has laid a solid foundation and developed the ability to focus on learning, allowing him to enter the major he likes, tap into the kid's talent, and change his destiny. There are many smart and talented people in this world, but many are often born at the wrong time, missing out on the opportunity to tap into their talents and further their progress, ultimately becoming mere blandness. Haha. Old Feng, you're quick, just enjoy yourself. Don't make us jealous. Engineer Zhan rolled his eyes at Feng Yuanyang, a classic example of someone who speaks without thinking. Are all the preparations done? After a few small talk, Engineer Zhan got down to business. This is the 10th inspection. We'll be done in another 10 minutes, and we'll move on to the shipping process. Feng Yuanyang glanced at the time, his expression solemn. This was a matter of great importance, and they would rather waste time and energy than allow even the slightest error. They had inspected and assembled the entire H-20 component by component, and were now undergoing repeated flaw detection inspections, all for the ultimate success. It could be said that these designers were more eager than anyone else to see the H-20 successfully soar into the skies and dazzle the world. To outsiders, it might seem unnecessary to overdo the testing. After all, development was proceeding smoothly, and the Xi'an Aircraft Research Institute had already taken care of everything. However, as the head of R&D, Engineer Zhan insisted on repeated testing to ensure that nothing was wrong. This was the rigorous craftsmanship inherited from the older generation, and it was also the essence of scientific research. As the next generation of leaders, Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, they also upheld this tradition, not finding it tedious. Scientific research is full of uncertainties, especially when it comes to bombers, which are destined for the skies. They are absolutely responsible for the national budget and the safety of the test pilots. Everyone's life is raised by their parents. The cost of training a pilot, especially a top-tier pilot, and the cost of developing and building a bomber are significant. The H-20 has been considered smooth and economical, yet the total R&D expenditure still exceeds 10 billion yuan, hard cash. They didn't want to waste the possibility of trial and error. They also didn't need another tragic cenotaph in the martyrs' cemetery. 10 minutes passed quickly, preparations complete, and the countdown to the H-20 test flight began, ready for launch. Following Engineer Zhan's instructions, the hangar gates opened. Chapter 287 Ghost. From the control room, everyone watched as a mysterious, dark steel eagle was slowly towed out of the hangar. Facing the rays of the rising sun, its matte black seemed to absorb the color of light waves. Standing still, it resembled a crouching beast gathering strength, instantly conveying its fierce, explosive power beneath its stillness. Our ghost falcon has taken to the runway, Feng Yuanyang stared intently at the steel falcon, its vast, triangular wings, variable sweep wings, superior carbon fiber composites, a superior titanium alloy fuselage, and a powerful, superior engine. It embodied a multifaceted legacy of cutting-edge scientific research, sharp radar, smarter avionics, enhanced stealth, and, of course, greater speed. He expected the Ghost Falcon H-20, like its larger sibling, the J-20, to achieve dazzling, miraculous performance. The final check was complete, and a voice from the Ghost Raptor echoed in the control room. Ghost 01, requesting taxi, begin taxiing. Engineers on gave a firm handshake and calmly issued the order. With this command, the Steel Raptor slowly began taxiing, smoothly and effortlessly beginning its first taxi test. Taxi test complete. Ghost 01 requesting takeoff. Ghost 01, cleared for takeoff. The Ghost Raptor began gathering power. With a single acceleration, the Raptor instantly soared into the sky, reaching an altitude of 10,000 meters and disappearing in a flash. Reporting tracking data. Speeds exceeding those of a bomber, they didn't need to rely on the naked eye to track the Ghost Raptor H-20. Technology provided reliable means for them to constantly track the Raptor. Engineers on began issuing commands to the control tower. Phantom 01 has entered its scheduled flight range and is pushing its maximum envelope. It has reached an altitude of 20,000 meters and a top speed of Mach 3.37, Mach 3.37, a record. Our Phantom Raptor is truly a phantom, with unparalleled speeds that no one can match. Feng Yuanyang excitedly shared this with Lu Xiao and Wu Tong with a wave of his arms. The current Phantom Raptor is completely different from his original draft, with almost no trace of his original design left. However, Feng Yuanyang was not at all embarrassed by this. The superior result was what mattered most. Although he was the original designer of the H-20, it was a design based on his own vision, not the most superior one. It was these two young people around him who gave the H-20 its revolutionary and superior design, its magnificent technological advancements, and the potential for it to lead the world, truly rolling off the production line, transforming it from a blueprint into reality. Their ghost bird, like a true beast, a true ghost, will shine in practice with its imperceptible superior combat speed and ultra-long range, becoming the most powerful practitioner of justice and peace, judging the world. Where they achieved something, these two young men further refined the technology. Where they failed, they also researched, developed, and engineered it into reality. The breakthrough in the variable sweep wing, which enabled the Ghost to reach even greater speeds, was particularly shocking, nearly to the point of tears. Aircraft design presents a difficult dilemma. To increase the Mach number, a wing with a high sweep angle and a low aspect ratio must be selected to reduce shock wave drag. However, such a wing produces less lift and higher induced drag at subsonic speeds, making it inefficient. From an aerodynamic perspective, to simultaneously meet the requirements of supersonic flight, subsonic cruise, and short takeoff and landing, stall, the ideal solution is to have a variable sweep wing, adapting the sweep angle to different flight conditions. This is the basis for the ultimate technology of the variable sweep wing. Overseas and neighboring countries were already developing this technology during the difficult early years of their founding in the last century. The Tu-160, one of the country's most advanced technologies, is a masterpiece of variable sweep wing technology. At the time, the Soviet Air Force requested a multi-role intercontinental bomber and reconnaissance aircraft with a speed of 3,200 to 3,500 km per hour at an altitude of 18,000 meters, a low-altitude range of 11,000 to 13,000 km, a high-altitude subsonic range of 16,000 to 18,000 km, and supersonic cruise capability. However, due to limitations, experts, after preliminary research, concluded that developing such an aircraft was unrealistic given the technical conditions at the time, and the project was subsequently abandoned. 3 years later, the big brother next door finally chose to lower the technical requirements. The final impact data of the Tu-160 was that the maximum subsonic range was reduced to 14,016,000 km, and the sprint speed was 2,000 km per hour. As a leader in the field of fighter aircraft design, Feng Yuanyang was familiar with these data. He now stood up straight with pride. Their Ghost Raptor H-20 not only did not lower the requirements, but the predicted data were all superior and breakthrough. Especially since the test flight, many data have become real record-breaking data. Their altitude has exceeded 20,000 meters, and their high-altitude speed has exceeded Mach 3.37, exceeding 4,000 kilometers per hour, and they are the fastest speed in the world. This speed gives the Ghost Raptor an unmatched and irreplaceable ghostly momentum. That's not even the H-20's top speed. Engineer Zan's eyes gleamed with hope, a flicker of joy etched across his face. Just the initial impact had already broken the record, surpassing the current world record for the fastest fighter jet at Mach 3.35. He held even greater expectations for the subsequent test data. The H-20, their Ghost Raptor, would surely create miracles. The dream he'd longed for had finally become a reality. Conducting super-maneuverability tests, on that day, the people of Chang'an, traveling abroad, were fortunate enough to witness a miracle they would reminisce about for the rest of their lives. Initially, their attention was drawn to a faint, strange sound. It resembled the relentless rumble of spring thunder, the rebirth of nature. But amidst the crisp, resonant thunder, those with keen ears could sense the roar of an approaching summer hurricane. This struck them as strange. It was early autumn, so where could spring thunder and summer hurricanes come from? Curious, they couldn't help but look in the direction of the sound. Following the sound, the people looked up and saw a dark shadow breaking through the clouds in the clear blue sky, shattering wherever it passed. They saw it from a great distance away, and just as they were wondering what it was, they had no time to speculate. In a moment of astonishment, it flew over them in an instant, its speed as swift as a ghost, leaving them speechless. Chapter 288 Future. There was a fish in the North Sea, named Kun. Kun's size was unknown, stretching for thousands of miles. It transformed into a bird, named Pen. Its back, its length unknown, stretched for thousands of miles. In its fury, it soared, its wings like clouds drooping from the heavens. At that moment, this was the scene that flashed through most people's minds upon seeing this ferocious bird. The rapidly approaching steel behemoth, illuminated by the clear, sunlit sky, cast a shadow resembling a cloud hanging from the heavens. Kunpeng embodies the admiration people have held for giant flying objects and for flight throughout history. As it drew closer, those with a keen eye seemed to see the wings of the black peng fold back gracefully, like a swan. Following this maneuver, a brilliant blue flame erupted from its tail, and it soared into the sky at an angle almost perpendicular to the ground. The black peng seemed to accelerate even further, accelerating at its already breakneck speed. In a split second, the black peng roared away, leaving barely any room for observation, leaving only a sense of regret. What was that? What was it? This topic, which began with a few blurry, black-spotted photos from a curious Chang'an user, has slowly escalated into heated discussion. Discussion threads swelled one after another. What kind of wings can be adjusted? In the age of the internet, knowledgeable military enthusiasts suppressed their frenzied excitement and speculated, is it a variable sweep wing? Have variable sweep wings been realized in China? Are there aircraft like the B-2 or Tu-160? Their long-cherished wish finally became reality. Is it true? Why does it feel like a dream? Is it just a rumor? Can we post real pictures? Just guessing based on a few blurry, almost indistinguishable black spots? Could someone at Chang'an be dazzled? Given the fighter's altitude, it's unlikely they could see clearly, but given what they were saying, it's possible they were mistaken. Vertical takeoff, variable wings, instantaneous airborne city flight? Are they sure they're not dreaming? Has the official announcement been made? Opinions diverged for a time, with those optimistic, those believing, those pessimistic, and those unconvinced. The main concern was the lack of a definitive official answer. However, such a definitive answer wasn't likely to arrive anytime soon. Internet regulators were simply ensuring there were no unrest, no malicious actors inciting unrest, and no risk of leaks. As for the online strife, they viewed it as a warm-up before the H-20's unveiling. While the people of Chang'an were in a state of euphoria, the Xi'an Aircraft Research Institute, Zaircraft, was compiling data after data, and within the control room and beyond, the entire institute was also in a state of excitement. Their H-20 had successfully launched, and the performance was exceptional. The aggregated parameters, one by one, were world-leading. The older generation was practically in tears. Their Chinese Kunpeng, the phantom and fierce bird soaring through the heavens, was destined to dominate the future. The H-20's flight took several hours. Upon its return, all its progress maps converged, spanning the entirety of China. Winds whistled, clouds surged, and the Kunpeng soared, its wingspan reaching 30,000 kilometers. Their fierce bird, their black peng, boasted a range of 30,000 kilometers, a feat they dared to claim was unmatched by any other bomber in the world. Our H-20, with its superior power, maneuverability, and massive payload bay, will surely break our rules and constraints, ushering in a world-shaking event. Its arrival is the verdict of justice. Engineer Zun was practically in tears when the H-20 landed safely, declaring the test flight a complete success. Superior materials reduced the fuselage's weight, while allowing for a greater payload for the same proportionate volume. The H-20's powerful engines give it the incredible kinetic energy to fly farther, higher, and faster. Its ultra-stealth coating, ultra-sensitive advanced radar, and the ability to simultaneously carry nuclear weapons, have given the H-20, the Black Peng, a true stabilization of the world's superbomber ranks. And he dared to say, absolutely and absolutely, that it surpassed a B-2 and Tu-160, two long-time world champions, becoming the new heir to Weight King. He clenched his hands, gazing deeply at the Black Peng as it slowly came to a stop on the runway. Ground personnel immediately surrounded it, conducting various tests and compiling data, and he spoke word by word. From now on, there was no place they could not go. Wherever the H-20 went, the Chinese way was embraced. Mr. Wu, Mr. Liu, please allow me to solemnly address you. Thank you. Although these two words are too superficial, I still want to say thank you. You have allowed me to close my eyes in this life without regrets, and to witness the complete success of the H-20 with my own eyes. Engineer Zun turned and bowed deeply, expressing his gratitude for the emergence of talents in each generation, and for the assistance of these two great men, who have enabled China to advance research progress by 10 to 20 years and realize it. From the H-6, to the H-18, and now the H-20, they have waited too long, expected too long, and longed for too long. Engineer Zun, and me, this is also my dream come true. Feng Yuanniang saluted in unison, expressing his deepest gratitude. All of this has contributed to the world-leading performance of the H-20, which has exceeded their highest expectations. Engineer Zun, Professor Feng, no, Wu Tong and Lu Xiao quickly took each side, supporting Engineer Zun. They were all young people and did not deserve such a generous gift from their predecessors. Engineer Zun, this is just the beginning. Our future is still very long. The H-20 has been developed, and so are the J-35, H-30, H-40, and even aerospace fighters, maybe even a star destroyer. If you dare to dream, the future holds endless possibilities. Currently, China can only say that it has partially caught up with the world's leading level, but in other areas, there's still much to be done. Engineer Zun, Professor Feng, you're both still young and in your prime. We'll need your leadership and support in the future, and we'll need your help and support. Don't start slacking off now, thinking you can retire to the sidelines, Lu Xiao quipped, following Wu Tong's vision. A large project team requires exceptional talent. It's difficult for just one or two of them to achieve the feat of creating a fighter jet or warship. These experienced experts, not to mention the J-35 project they're about to launch, urgently need the assistance of these two and many more R&D personnel. It's not that Yi and Wu Tong alone, hand-rolling the parts, can't do it. But it's just a waste of time. With 3, 5, or 10 years to waste, why not do something else? Working together, uniting all forces that can be united, to accelerate scientific research progress as quickly as possible, that's the most fundamental thing. Chapter 289 Martial Virtue. They were the fools who had to do everything themselves. Neither he nor Wu Tong was stupid enough to pull off such a foolish act. Haha, no problem, Lu Xiao, Wu Tong, if you need anything, just ask anytime, and I, Old Zun, will hand over these 180 kilograms. Engineer Zun, full of chivalry, immediately patted his chest and promised. He could guarantee that he was just a brick in the project, deployed wherever needed. He had thought the H-20 would be his perfect retirement, but upon hearing Wu Tong and Lu Xiao's description and invitation, Engineer Zun instantly regained his strength, and no trace of old age remained. He wished he could live 100 years longer, fight longer, see a more distant future, and make more contributions, even if it was just supporting. Any progress on the J-35, Engineer Zun and Feng Yuanniang were both pillars of the domestic fighter aircraft industry, national treasures, and clearly no fools. Following the hints from Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, they couldn't help but keenly grasp the key point. It probably hasn't been approved yet, Otherwise, with their authority, they wouldn't have missed the news. It's already in preliminary research. Next, Engineer Zahn and Professor Feng will have to shoulder the heavy lifting, sharing the responsibility for the H-20's subsequent testing and continued production and service integration. We'll quickly finalize the J-35's full launch layout, apply for project approval, and enter the R&D process. Lu Xiao nodded gently, a clear idea indeed. He'd already designed the J-35's preliminary layout and was just waiting to meet with Wu Tong to further verify and optimize the areas she excelled at. Striving for excellence, they only wanted the best. The J-35 project was about to be approved so soon? They were eager to make technical preparations, but Feng Yuanyang and engineers on were hesitant about whether it needed to be put into service so quickly. Did the J-20 just enter service? The H-20 was newly developed, and its official service is not expected until the end of the year or the beginning of the next. With these two powerful fighters, was it really necessary to replace them immediately? Knowing the concerns of the two experienced chief engineers, Lu Xiao carefully explained, the J-35 will not conflict with a J-20 or H-20. It will serve as a breakthrough in higher performance technology and fill a gap in our capabilities. The J-20 and H-20, which the country has expended enormous resources and funds on, and they have devoted so much energy and manpower to developing, practically exhausting their efforts, will not be a fleeting success, wasted and retired. Therefore, from the very beginning of the J-35's development and design, they thoroughly researched and designed it to ensure it would not conflict with a J-20 or H-20. Maximizing resource utilization is the only way to truly benefit the country. Carrier-based aircraft, Lu Xiao uttered a single word, representing the direction of J-35 development. Count me in. You absolutely must count me in on the J-35 project. I'll help you. Engineer Zahn's eyes lit up, his interest piqued, and he hurriedly requested. Supercarrier-based aircraft are indeed a field the country has not yet fully embraced. This is bound to be another new breakthrough, and he must personally participate and witness it. And me, count me in too, Mr. Wu. I'll bring your brother over to the project team so you and your sister can work together. Feng Yuanyang raised an eyebrow, instantly remembering his silly apprentice's ambition. He hadn't forgotten his silly apprentice's constant yearning to grow quickly, learn as much as possible, and work alongside Wu Tong. However, that foolish boy hadn't realized the gap between him and Wu Tong was already wider than the Mariana Trench, and it wasn't something he could close in a short time. This was a perfect opportunity to fulfill his silly apprentice's wish, strengthen their relationship, and get him a spot on the cutting-edge project team. Most importantly, this was a joint project between Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, a groundbreaking project in a relatively new field, and he was eager to participate. Give that kid another 6 months of hard work this year, and early next year I'll have him write his thesis, apply for early graduation, and then pursue a combined master's and doctoral degree. Feng Yuanyang carefully explained his plans for his student to Wu Tong. Normally, he rarely supervised undergraduates, but Jinzin excelled, sneaking into his graduate school just halfway through the semester. He also unexpectedly learned that Jinzin had a remarkable sister, Wu Tong, a master of illicit connections. He immediately booked her and brought her under his wing. Jinzin truly lived up to the shared ancestry of Wu Tong. His talent, self-discipline, and hard work were unmatched, and he was considered one of the best in the school. His plans for Jinzin weren't forced out of favor, but rather tailored to his current academic progress. Wu Tong should have been able to gauge Jinzin's level. He wasn't playing games. Jinzin was truly a skilled student, working tirelessly and diligently to achieve his aspirations. This was the key factor that truly convinced him of Jinzin. Normally, such plans should be discussed with the student's elders or the student himself. However, Jinzin had a sister who was already a high-ranking official, perhaps even more powerful than him, his advisor. This reversed the family dynamic. Discussing this with Wu Tong allowed for direct, precise, and clear communication. You have extensive experience in this area. I'll leave everything to you. Wu Tong assured her that she was the most rational and cooperative parent. Feng Yuanyang would not interfere with the student's academic schedule. The student had performed well, already possessing an H-20 certificate, which had secured him an early graduation from his advisor and enabled him to pursue a master's and doctoral degree. With more effort, he could also acquire a J-35 certificate. This would ensure a smooth graduation and allow him to gain ample experience, perspective, and experience, ultimately leading to true excellence. She wouldn't force the student's progress, but with her influence, she would certainly not refuse to help him achieve further opportunities for training and learning. She studied and researched hard. In addition to her love for serving the motherland with her own abilities, she also wanted to bring glory to her family. Of course, abiding by the law is a prerequisite. The cautious nature of the family will definitely not use such privileges to do evil. I say, old Feng, you are not being authentic, Zhang shouted angrily. How could there be such an unethical person who competed head-on and took the lover route? This is bullying. Old Chang got a chance to win easily when he met Wu Tong. Feng Yuanyang got a good student and was endorsed by Wu Tong. Seeing the benefits, it was so heartbreaking that he wanted to hide him with a club. He, old Zan, was upright and honest. He did things in a proper way and would never do anything crooked. Unlike some people, who either relied on the light of their apprentices or the light of Wu Tong's relatives, Zan Gong could admit without blushing that he was jealous. Why didn't he encounter such a godsend opportunity? Chapter 290 Fierce. Engineer Zan, you're overthinking it. I was just discussing the student's study schedule with their family. Feng Yuanyang smiled subtly. He was quick-witted, and Engineer Zan was envious. He wasn't afraid of assigning students excessive homework. Ask anyone who could be so confident. Haha, haha, Engineer Zan sneered at Feng Yuanyang. He was a fool to believe it. Feng's heart was a wicked one. Like Old Man Chang, they were both dishonest people who took advantage and kept their promises. However, this had nothing to do with Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, so Zan Dapao wouldn't take his anger out on them. Engineer Zan didn't bother to argue with these cunning individuals. He spoke with skill and experience, and instead told Wu Tong and Lu Xiao firmly, if you need my assistance, just ask. After the H20 project concluded, he had no new goals for the time being. Working with Wu Tong and Lu Xiao on the J35 was definitely the best option. Who knows, they might yet again create a mind-blowing, world-shattering miracle. These two talented individuals teamed up to break world records, and he believed it would become increasingly commonplace, becoming routine for them. It's rare for siblings to meet, so why don't you be generous and give the Jin family's son a break so he can talk to Wu Tong? Engineer Zan offered a rare, soft rebuke from Feng Yuanyang. There were absolutely no professional or personal conflicts between them, but it didn't affect his smug attitude. Thanks, Engineer Zan, for the heads up. I'll arrange it right away. Wu Tong, Lu Xiao, be sure to count me in on the J35 project. Feng Yuanyang wouldn't miss out on the most important fighter jet project of recent times. He was only just over 40, and he wouldn't give in to his age. He absolutely had to secure a role in such a cutting-edge and significant project. Having secured a head start, he shamelessly reserved his seat in advance. Otherwise, once the news got out, the competition for a spot on the project team would be overwhelming, and there would be no shortage of talent. Moreover, each and every one of them lacked moral integrity and had no shame. He was a complete greenhorn. In terms of seniority, he might not even be counted among the top. However, in terms of initiative and ability, he was undeniably the most qualified. We're definitely going to have to trouble you seniors and need your help. Brother Lu and I can't handle such a large project. Wu Tong and Lu Xiao agreed immediately. The J35 project needed plenty of manpower, and Engineer Zan and Professor Feng were happy to join them. This was their honorary position. Then it's a deal. I know you're efficient. Don't worry about the finishing work on the H20 project. We'll get it done as soon as possible and won't hold back, Engineer Zan said immediately. If he could delegate, he actually wanted to be a hands-off boss. The already completed H20 Ghost Bird no longer held any challenge for those of them who love the challenge of R&D. Especially with the allure of new projects, the finishing work seemed too routine. However, if Wu Tong and Lu Xiaodang were given time to work on new research and development, Zan Dapao would be willing to devote himself to finishing the work, completing the handover, and waiting to move on to the next project to continue shining. The complete success of the H20 test flight was the reason they had the leisure to argue with each other here, or even discuss new projects. After all the data was collected, they began a new round of verification and validation. Wu Tong spent a whole day at the R&D center. When he left the R&D center, the lights weren't already on. Zhan Guang and his friends had wanted to arrange for Wu Tong to go out for dinner, but Wu Tong wanted to see Jin Xin, so he declined the invitation. Professor Feng, please let me ask you, I'll take my little brother away for 2 hours, The last time she saw the little brother was her birthday. It was already October, and it was almost his birthday. In a blink of an eye, it had been more than 2 months since they last saw each other. She missed him so much. No problem. I've already informed Jinzin. I'll be waiting for you at the door. Let him do whatever he wants tonight. Professor Feng gave an okay sign. It was a rare reunion for the siblings, and he'd used it to build ties and curry favor, so naturally, he wouldn't spoil the fun. Naturally, he'd made all the arrangements early. Wu Tong bowed, thanking Professor Feng for his kindness. Lu Xiao escorted her out of the institute without having to send engineers on and Professor Feng out again. Brother Lu, it's late today. I'll talk more tomorrow. Maybe I can give you a surprise. Before leaving the institute, Wu Tong kept it a secret. She happened to run into Lu Xiao, and they made a temporary appointment for tomorrow to begin optimizing the J35's aerodynamic layout. Some issues are better discussed in person. Phone calls are always risky. With a general solution to the NS equations, she felt confident she could challenge the current state-of-the-art in quasi-perfect design. I'm looking forward to it, Lu Xiao smiled. Wu Tong's surprise was naturally something she was eagerly anticipating. At a research institute, Wu Tong spotted Jin Xin, standing taller than a telephone pole, before the gate. After bidding farewell to Lu Xiao, Wu Tong immediately took a step, accelerating a few paces, and excitedly approached Jin Xin. Brother, are you getting impatient? Wu Tong waved in front of Jin Xin. Surprised, knowing that the project team's deputy chief designer was Feng Yuanyang, Wu Tong had anticipated that meeting him might actually be more of a coincidence than she'd anticipated. Hey, that wasn't a surprise, it was a shock. I nearly lost my mind. Jin Xin could only say that he still had some lingering sleepiness from waking up earlier, but it was instantly shaken off. I really thought I was dreaming. Haha, am I that scary? Brother, think it over. Wu Tong reached out and twisted Jin Xin's arm, full of threats. Was this all she got in return for her joy? 4 Jins, sure? Surprise. I'm so happy to see my Tong here. At that time, I felt like the heavenly music was playing and the flowers were blooming. How could I not be happy? Even if I dream, it's a beautiful dream. If I wasn't thinking about you, how could I dream of you? Jin Xin was instantly overjoyed. They had been siblings for 18 years, and he knew too well what it meant to be an older brother. You have to be quick in action and sweet in your words. Puchy, Wu Tong couldn't help laughing. It seemed that no matter how tedious the study tasks were, they couldn't erase the little brother's temper. Let's go, little brother, let's go eat hot pot. I'll treat you to a big meal and celebrate your birthday in advance. Jin Xin wiped his sweat, his hearty smile overflowing with sunshine. Being a brother, is it easy for him? Fortunately, he didn't forget the basic skills, and he reacted quickly, so that Tong didn't kick him into the pit. H20, our ghost bird, is really ferocious to the extreme. After joking around for a while, on the way to the reserved hot pot restaurant, Jin Xin couldn't help but tell Wu Tong with a beaming face how excited he was to watch the test flight today. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291 Stovel. After playing with the little brother for a while, the tiredness of the busy day seemed to have disappeared. The brother and sister went to eat hot pot happily. They grew up together and their tastes were similar. There would be no obstacle of not being able to eat from the same pot. Wu Tong did not tell Jin Xin about the things that had not happened yet. She was just waiting for the project to be approved and the personnel to be in place, and then she would see the surprise of the little brother. Wu Tong had to admit that she had a bit of a mischievous taste. She wanted to see the little brother being surprised again and to hear her little brother's funny jokes. That would never be enough. Late in the evening, Wu Tong and Jin Xin did not eat too spicy food. They ordered donglation near the big wild goose pagoda. When the pot was steaming, the fresh mutton was dipped in the soup base and then dipped in a bowl of sauce with less spicy and more sesame sauce. The taste was really wonderful. One of the happiest things in life is truly to eat and drink to one's heart's content. It's true, really. Jin Xin, a typical carnivore, scooped up some lamb with his chopsticks, dipped it in the appropriate seasoning, and stuffed it with his mouthful, completely satisfied. Especially today, The excitement of witnessing the H-20's maiden flight and the joy of meeting Tong intertwined. It was the most beautiful thing in the world. But, after all, it's a little less authentic than what we had in Shengjing last time. That was the only slight regret. Oranges grown in the south of the Wire River are oranges, while those grown in the north of the Wire River are trifoliate oranges. Their leaves may look similar, but their flavors are different. Outside of Shengjing, tastes vary from place to place, so slight adjustments are inevitable. Shengjing's Donglation is still the most authentic. Next time we're both in Shengjing, we'll bring our family to try it again. Wu Tong nodded. The food was pretty good, just a little off. They weren't picky connoisseurs, so this was more than enough. This location is great. Looking out the window of our reserved private room, it's brightly lit and bustling with activity right now. Diagonally across is the Big Wild Goose Pagoda, and not far away is the Tang Dynasty City, which was completed last year. It's a major project here, receiving significant support, and it's already taking shape. I expect it'll be even more bustling in 2 years. From what people have said, it's quite interesting. After a hearty meal, Jinzin glanced out the window and gave Wu Tong a smooth introduction. He had joined the research institute when he arrived, conducting confidential research, so he certainly couldn't come and go freely. He hadn't yet explored this ancient capital of 13 dynasties. However, after being here for a long time, he'd certainly gained more information from interacting with people than the newcomer Tong. It's a great place. Let the family come over when you have time. Wu Tong felt that occasional business trips were also a great opportunity to gain experience. If he came across a great place, he could recommend it to his family. It was a great idea. My mom's here, and she's going to praise you as her little cotton padded jacket again, Jinzin chuckled. Tong was more attentive than he was. Aunt's fine, she has long vacations during the winter and summer holidays. But Uncle's vacations are a bit more rare. A full-time job, with its enviable stable salary and benefits, certainly has its limitations. However, a family trip is meant to be complete and enjoyable, and without 2 important family members, the fun wouldn't be complete. The family would definitely wait for Uncle to be free before going on a trip. As long as they were happy, the tourism industry wasn't as booming as it would be in the future, so a holiday trip wasn't a problem. It was all about experiencing the crowds and the excitement. In a few years, vacations would become difficult, and my parents would be nearing retirement age, giving them more freedom. After a well-fed, well-dressed, and well-deserved sleep, the next day was a fresh start for Wu Tong. Inside Lu Xiao's office at Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation, the most confidential area. The complex aerodynamic design of the fighter jet lay spread out on the table. Lu Xiao meticulously explained his design philosophy and principles to Wu Tong, including his starting point. Having worked on the J-20 and H-20 projects, Wu Tong was no stranger to the fighter jet sector, particularly the optimization of fighter parameters, a skill she could be considered expert. She quickly absorbed Lu Xiao's ideas, noting down key parameters until she had memorized the entire layout. As she gained a deeper understanding, Wu Tong became increasingly impressed by Lu Xiao's overall design. China is moving towards a deeper understanding of the sea, with significant breakthroughs in ship development expected in recent years. Especially with the relatively successful maiden trials of its aircraft carrier in August, the Chinese amphibious ready group will increasingly require carrier-based fighters, prompting the J-35 pre-research program to meet this need. As Lu Xiao designed the aircraft, he and Wu Tong engaged in detailed discussions, collaborating on ideas and ultimately determining the fundamental positioning of their intended fighter. Based on our initial discussions, the J-35 design adheres to a single-seat, single-engine, all-weather, stealth, and multi-role design, designed to perform air superiority in attack missions. It also provides electronic warfare and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. Most importantly, it must be capable of vertical takeoff and landing, with short or instant takeoff. Wu Tong nodded. She understood that they were developing more than just an ordinary carrier-based aircraft. A short or instant takeoff STOVL fighter must have a larger combat radius and carry more weapons. STOVL translates to short takeoff and vertical landing. It can be used for conventional takeoff and landing, a technique known as CTOL. Compared to traditional CTOLs, STOVLs require fewer flight deck facilities, requiring only a ski jump flight deck to launch the aircraft. The simplicity of vertical landing is even greater, eliminating the need for bulky, complex, and expensive catapults and arresting cables, significantly reducing operating and acquisition costs and failure rates. A short takeoff and vertical landing, STOVL, fighter is distinct from a vertical takeoff and landing, VTOL. These design requirements aren't just simple phrases. Taken together, they represent the key challenges of aerospace research. The biggest challenge lies in STOVL, the basic variant of conventional takeoff and landing, and carrier-based aircraft technology, in which they already have a solid foundation. The J-35 features significant design breakthroughs, all aimed at creating a more powerful fighter. This is particularly true of the electromagnetic catapult, a feature Liu Xiao has mastered to perfection. Fortunately, Wu Tong has a solid foundation in physics, otherwise even getting started would be difficult. We also need to optimize the engine. Liu Xiao placed his hopes on Wu Tong to maximize the success of his plan. If anyone in China could optimize, or even ideally, upgrade, the arguably best WS-15S, Liu Xiao felt it was Wu Tong. It's a must. I've already contacted General Yang, and will be working on an upgraded and optimized WS-15S soon. Wu Tong nodded. She was already working on this area, a skill she was relatively skilled in, and she felt obligated to do so. Chapter 292 Help. Wu Tong felt that the person most familiar with this grand launch layout was none other than the designer, Liu Xiao. After a moment's thought, Wu Tong pulled over a piece of scratch paper, wrote down a series of mathematical formulas, and handed it to Liu Xiao. Brother Liu, I hope this helps you. Wu Tong felt that the general solution to the NS equation would be best utilized when placed in the hands of someone who could maximize its use. Her fighter jet design and layout were more about optimizing existing parameters and, from that foundation, improving performance, rather than designing from scratch. With this general solution, supplemented by her mathematical skills and computational expertise, Liu Xiao might be able to build upon the current design and create an even more advanced version. Wu Tong kept the NS general solution confidential internationally. She didn't intend to keep it solely in her own hands. She entrusted it to top domestic researchers whom she trusted to maximize its use and drive scientific progress, thus maximizing its value. What is this? Having mastered physics to such an extreme, Liu Xiao's mathematical skills were naturally exceptional. However, he focused more on physics than on Wu Tong, who pursued the mysteries of mathematics and achieved breakthroughs in proving conjectures. Upon first sight of the formula in his hand, Liu Xiao's eyes froze in amazement, his heart racing. I hope this general solution to the NS equation will help you complete the overall design, Brother Liu. It will further advance Chinese scientific research. If needed, Brother Liu, you can pass it on to someone you absolutely trust. This general solution was incredibly important. Wu Tong planned to wait until the J-35 project was finalized, and then submit it to the higher-ups once he had acquired data that would be absolutely beneficial to scientific research. Due to the scope of this general solution, its application would be limited to a very small area to ensure maximum domestic benefits. I will live up to your trust. Deeply moved, Liu Xiao solemnly promised Wu Tong that he would not let him down. Liu Xiao hadn't anticipated the surprise Wu Tong had hinted at yesterday would be so extraordinary. With the power of the general solution to the Navier-Stokes equation and Wu Tong's help, this time, he must create a fighter jet that will reach the top of the world's rankings. Only the best fighter jet in the world can truly match the name of the Navier-Stokes equation. Wu Tong gave Liu Xiao a thumbs up. This was their shared goal, to build the world's best fighter system. They believed that with their efforts, this ambition would one day become a reality. Let's work together. They were working hard for China's rise. Calculation and deduction were the unwavering themes. Wu Tong had made arrangements with his family and the university, and decided to stay at Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation to refine the J-35 design. With the help of the general solution to the Navier-Stokes equation, the entire design was approaching its ultimate perfection. The two men were well aware that both domestically and internationally, China's research into STOVL fighters was generally viewed with skepticism and pessimism. They believed that China's current level of aviation industry, fighter design expertise, and scientific and technological expertise were insufficient to meet the requirements of the STOVL fighter. And that excessive pursuit of the technology was a futile waste of time and money. Given this pessimism, why did China persist in research? It was all about maintaining control of the technology and its own influence. A strong foundation was paramount, the ultimate truth. Mr. Wu, I'm reporting to you. We've successfully developed the T-10001 carbon fiber composite production line, living up to expectations, Chu Hengin spoke in a rare, cheerful tone over the confidential phone call. After months of research and development led by several top mechanical experts, the country had successfully developed a large-scale, 100-ton capacity precision carbon fiber composite production line. This marked the realization of nationalized production of ultra-high-performance carbon fiber composites in China, ensuring self-sufficiency and eliminating reliance on imports. Reporting the good news to Wu Tong, finally, the research was complete. He mentally wiped away a sweat. It was rare for him to promise the task in front of President Wu. If he couldn't complete it, Wu Tong would have to free up his hands and do the research himself. That would be a complete joke. He imagined the experts leading the charge must have felt the same way. This time, their efficiency was much higher than usual. Sure enough, where there's pressure, there's a breakthrough. The veterans also wanted to show off before the younger generation. They couldn't appear ineffective. They wanted to prove they were still sharp and ingenious. Compared to Wu Tong's speed, their development was a bit slow. But there was only one Wu Tong in the world. While the authorities praised the emergence of a brilliant talent like Wu Tong, who had significantly accelerated scientific research progress in several areas of China, which had taken at least a decade to achieve, they also didn't deny the contributions of other researchers. However, those experts were always competitive, and this time, they were quietly engaging in a competition, though Wu Tong was unaware. Thank you all for your great assistance, Commander Chu. This is truly the best news today. Wu Tong was overjoyed. As the J-35's design was being finalized, this news was undoubtedly a welcome boost. Such good news was undoubtedly a significant breakthrough for the J-35, which would make extensive use of T-10001 carbon fiber composite materials. Several experts are making final adjustments to the production line, and production is expected to begin in the next few days. Your hard work, Mr. Wu, has finally paid off. The H-20's maiden flight was a resounding success, followed by repeated test flights and the gradual release of test data. Its superior performance delighted the Air Force leaders, who urged the H-20 to roll off the production line as soon as possible for its entry into service. Their pilots were already being specially selected for training. The H-20's fuselage already incorporates a significant amount of carbon fiber composites, particularly in the wings, which are essentially fully clad. The demand for these composite materials has already reached a significant level. At this time, despite the pressure, they finally achieved a breakthrough in R&D on the production line, which allowed them to fill the gap without lagging behind. This also allowed them to build up a certain amount of reserves for new projects. Lu Xiao and Wu Tong were working on the preliminary R&D and design of the J-35. A secret kept secret from the outside world. However, for him, the head of the research department, it was no secret. He had already allocated a portion of his carbon fiber composite material reserves for the J-35 project and was already gathering funds, awaiting the J-35 project application. The J-35 project, which had been forged by the powerful collaboration of Wu Tong, the miracle worker, and Lu Xiao, formerly the nation's most promising scientific talent, was unanimously supported by the higher-ups. Chapter 293 Choice. Facts speak louder than words. Wu Tong and Lu Xiao have repeatedly demonstrated the success of their collaboration, both on the J-20 and H-20 projects, at world-leading levels. They've leapt forward in domestic scientific research, and these breakthroughs have left them thrilled and almost incredulous. Furthermore, each of them has already achieved remarkable scientific results in their respective fields. Now, with no coordination from above, their spontaneous collaboration will undoubtedly yield a transformational outcome far greater than the sum of their parts. How could they not be excited? In terms of research, they anticipate the fruits of their collaboration, and similarly, they naturally want to provide as much support as possible for their collaborative projects and prepare in advance. Large projects naturally require significant funding. Minister Chu is actually quite worried. With the end of the year approaching, if the J-35 pre-research proceeds smoothly, especially given the speed Wu Tong and Lu Xiao are producing, approval for the project is highly likely within the year. Where can he find the massive funds needed for the J-35 project? Gritting his teeth, Chu called the head of a certain Air Force. Ultimately, fighter jet development would be handed over to the Air Force, right? He couldn't be the only one worrying about funding. If they wanted a superior fighter, They would have to shoulder the financial burden. Expecting to reap the rewards without further ado was a complete impossibility. If the Air Force dared to take advantage of the situation, he would incite Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, turning against the Army and Navy, who are now eager for their attention. Don't think that top talents like Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, whose continuous extension of projects focused primarily on aviation, allow the Air Force to be complacent. Top talent is always top-notch, especially Wu Tong. She has proven through numerous exceptional public welfare achievements that her abilities extend beyond mathematics and aerospace, truly encompassing a wide range of disciplines. He is currently holding on to petitions for support from both the Army and Navy, preventing them from approaching him. Unless absolutely necessary, they don't wish to restrict Wu Tong's research direction too much, preferring to give her greater freedom. They couldn't place all the pressure of domestic scientific research on Wu Tong alone. No matter how exceptional Wu Tong's abilities were, she couldn't be the sole burden. Mrs. Wu had already done her best to contribute to the country. She owed nothing to the country or anyone else. No one, regardless of who they were, could only ask for favors, not force her to focus on a specific research project or produce any specific results. This was a clear protection granted to Wu Tong. Every contribution was recorded, and if Wu Tong so desired, they could cooperate in publishing her contributions, allowing the world to know about them. However, the forces protecting Wu Tong would have to be multiplied, and her freedom might be restricted for her safety. After all, a top talent like Wu Tong was a treasure to China. To those who didn't have her help, they would be eager to destroy her. Wu Tong had no particular interest in publicizing her achievements for global acclaim. Therefore, when Chu Hengyan solemnly questioned her, she firmly replied, "No, for me, having a healthy and secure family, and being able to focus solely on research, is enough. I already enjoy a comfortable lifestyle with plenty of amenities. That's more than enough." "Okay, Mr. Wu, we understand," Chu Hengyan said earnestly. Wu Tong's emphasis on his family warranted a higher level of attention. Protecting the safety of researchers' families was the responsibility of the security department, and the families of top researchers like Wu Tong were even more prioritized. If Wu Tong's father, Comrade Wu Jingzhong, hadn't harbored strong ambitions for a career, content with his current quiet life, Wu Tong's contributions would have been enough to propel Comrade Wu to a meteoric rise. "Brother Lu, Professor Feng, good news. The T10001 carbon fiber composite material is expected to begin production this week." Wu Tong smiled and raised his hand, sharing with Lu Xiao and Feng Yuanyang, who had paused their discussion at the other end of the office. Originally, engineers on had intended to arrange a separate office for Wu Tong. However, Wu Tong, aware that her stay at ZAC might not last long, and that she would be collaborating with Lu Xiao on calculations and deductions most of the time, decided against providing a separate office. She would temporarily use a corner of the office, where a workbench would suffice. Therefore, Engineer Zhan was asked to simply move a desk to another corner of Lu Xiao's office for her work, allowing for convenient communication and discussion. With the Enlightenment Steel's upgrade complete, its absolute deduction capabilities were further enhanced, creating a deduction space within the steel itself. Wu Tong could materialize designs with sufficient data parameters within the deduction space, simulating various environments and naturally deriving the optimal direction. Meanwhile, Professor Feng would lend a hand in the research during his free time. He also had extensive experience in fighter aircraft, and now, with Annan as his assistant, he was a valuable asset. However, Professor Feng's focus remained on assisting Engineer Zhan with data collection and extreme analysis for the H-20's repeated flight tests. The J-35 pre-research was classified beyond the pale, so Jinzin couldn't be involved for the time being. Therefore, even after working at the same institute for a while, Wu Tong and Jinzin didn't often see each other. However, they didn't regret it. As they each pursued their own goals, they didn't have time to dwell on other matters or overthink anything else. Wow, those mechanical engineers are finally getting their act together this time. The speed is pretty good, Feng Yuanyang quipped with a smile. As vice president of the H-20, he was of course aware of the T10001, which the H-20 would use extensively. However, since a large-scale production line hadn't been established, they were still using the materials accumulated by Wu Tong's lab over the past few months, using them with care and not wanting to waste a single bit. Now, they finally had good news. The final, crucial material for the H-20's production was finally being finalized. Engineer Zhan patiently put the finishing touches on the H-20, eagerly anticipating the good news. He knew nearly all of the mechanical engineering experts spearheading the production line's breakthrough, one of whom was a pillar of his school. The others, even if they weren't close, were merely acquaintances. Feng Yuanyang's teasing wasn't meant to be a joke, but rather a lament. The more he interacted with top young talents like Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, the more he felt the pressure to advance. It seemed that even those who weren't there couldn't escape the effects. Chapter 294 Question. I'll share this good news with Engineer Zhan later. He's waiting to hand over the H-20 project so he can move on to the new project. With a J-35 so captivating, Engineer Zhan's heart was practically racing. He and Engineer Zhan were like the elder brother, not the younger, sharing the same fascination. Otherwise, he wouldn't have stopped by to check on the progress of Wu Tong and Lu Xiao's collaborative preliminary research and design. Especially after gaining a preliminary understanding of Lu Xiao and Wu Tong's ambitious plan and the feasible technical deductions, he eagerly awaited the J-35 project's official launch and its successful implementation. If those predicted performance could be realized, just like Wu Tong and Lu Xiao's past achievements, it would truly be like a rock soaring to the wind, a dragon ascending to the sea, a hand raised to shake the sun, the moon setting. Everything was progressing in a positive direction. It couldn't be better. Wu Tong, now it's your hard work to optimize the final parameters. Lu Xiao finalized the design and breathed a sigh of relief. And the all-important engine, initially, the J-35 was just a dream he'd never imagined. Lu Xiao hadn't expected it to become a reality anytime soon. Even the J-35 designation was merely a benchmark for international standards. After the F-35 entered development and flight testing, the concept emerged: if foreign nations had the F-35, then they too would have the J-35. The J in the name actually carries a powerful and domineering connotation: annihilation. That was their most earnest hope. At that time, they hadn't even finalized the J-20, still toiling away day and night. They were fortunate to have Wu Tong, and they never underestimated his contributions, valuing his work. With his assistance, the J-20's design was refined, enhanced with superior fuselage and blade materials, and featuring engine optimizations and upgrades. This resulted in the J-20, a weapon that quickly took shape, entered service, and astonished the world. Soon after, Wu Tong assisted the J-20 in developing the world-leading PL-15 air-to-air missile, bringing the concept of a miniaturized air-to-air missile to life and giving the J-20 a more formidable force. As the J-20's technology gradually evolved and assimilated, Wu Tong further assisted in its refinement, resulting in the H-20, which now has a successful maiden flight, breaking numerous world records and widening the gap. It is now about to enter production and service. By solving the generalized NS equations, he achieved a more precise design, pushing past previous limitations and making it arguably his most successful and powerful design. The J-35's initial aerodynamic layout has been refined, and Wu Tong was the key to completing the foundation of this design. Currently, the US F-35B is the world's leading STVL fighter, but the F-35B has significant drawbacks: a short range, a small payload, and a complex structure. The structural complexity isn't a concern, their technological breakthroughs are key. Once they have a design, they will exhaust every possible means to implement it. The small payload is a key factor, thanks to scientific advances in miniaturized, high-powered air-to-air missiles and the significant weight reduction achieved through the use of various supermaterials. Therefore, the most immediate and crucial issue they face is their short range. As we all know, a fighter's range, or endurance, is primarily determined by its fuel level. However, during flight, this is also influenced by the fighter's cruising altitude, wind speed, and cruising speed. The STOVL fighter's short range stems from the fact that it must operate its engines at full power to achieve supermaneuverable maneuvers during short range and vertical takeoff and landing operations. These maneuvers naturally consume significant fuel. Even though the fighter might be fully fueled before takeoff, after a successful takeoff, the available fuel level is reduced to only 1/3, significantly reducing its range during normal operations. Even with the current superior performance of the WS-15S, such consumption is insufficient. The WS-15S was not originally designed with the STOVL fighter in mind. This was a crucial issue that had to be addressed. Wu Tong, Lu Xiao, and Feng Yuanyang had held a discussion. As a pillar of young scientific research, Feng Yuanyang was well informed and familiar with the advantages and disadvantages of the STOVL. To address the issue of short range, there are only two options. The first, the simplest and most drastic, is to increase the fuel tank capacity, or the number of tanks. Feng Yuanyang spread his hands and spoke directly. They were discussing the issue and identifying the most feasible solution, so there was no need to hide anything, just speak their mind. There are many options for this, such as adding a fuel tank to the vertical tail, designing a conformal fuel tank, and using spin-formed ceramic thin-walled fuel tank technology. These methods can be used individually or in combination, but if we increase the fuel capacity, there will inevitably be trade-offs in the overall performance of the aircraft. For Lu Xiao, sacrificing the overall performance of the aircraft to increase fuel capacity and thus the range of the carrier-based fighter unless it was absolutely necessary was putting the cart before the horse. This is only a last resort. We're pursuing the ultimate combat capability of the fighter jet, striving for perfection. Since it's not the optimal option, let's put it aside for now. The best solution is to start with engine optimization. We need to ensure the engine operates at its best under all flight conditions, maximizing fuel efficiency and achieving the highest performance. Wu Tong scribbled on a notepad, recording their engine optimization requirements. Leave it to me now. Give me some time, and I'll give you a complete plan as soon as possible, Wu Tong pleaded directly. Brother Lu had already completed the overall design, and now they needed to gradually implement the technology and optimize the overall parameters. The engine section, which was her area of expertise, would be hers to research. Okay, I'll leave the core areas to you, Wu Tong. Weapons systems, avionics systems, radar systems. Professor Feng and I will verify the technical feasibility of each of these areas one by one. Lu Xiao and Feng Yuanyang nodded immediately, their complete confidence in Wu Tong's abilities. Back at her desk, Wu Tong reviewed the J-35's overall design. Her hands were constantly calculating and refining the parameters, while simultaneously multitasking and considering the engine. Optimizing the engine had already been a key topic on her agenda, and the current discussion had only heightened its importance. She needed to find a breakthrough quickly to provide the J-35 with sufficient power. Chapter 295, Regret. Fortunately, she now had the aid of the Enlightenment Steel's absolute spatial deduction. This was much clearer and more intuitive than the previous mental modeling. She could physically perceive the advantages and disadvantages of the optimization direction, accelerating the optimization process. Within the limited time frame, she could compress the timeline as much as possible and avoid being the laggard. STOVL fighters were the inevitable trend and direction for the sustainable development of future aviation technology. Most microorganisms in nature actually take off and land vertically or by short descents. From flies, mosquitoes, and insects to most birds, no microorganisms have ever been seen flying on Earth. Surface runways were built specifically to facilitate takeoff and landing, but this was still a technical shortcoming and a second-best option. Most large birds can use river gliding to aid their flight. However, in real life, after the widespread deployment of these aircraft, the world immediately realized that their combined combat load on the ground and at sea was too great. I can polish jade by learning from others, Wu Tong pondered, her mind racing through previously reviewed confidential documents. Historically, STOVL fighter propulsion systems have three engine types. These include the British Harrier's Pegasus engine, the Yak 141's R79 plus RD41 engine, and the American F-135 engine. These three engine models correspond to three different technical solutions. The Pegasus engine utilizes a reversing thrust system with a rotating exhaust nozzle, which directs air downward during vertical takeoff and landing. This engine's defining feature is its lift-thrust integration, providing both cruise thrust and vertical lift. Its simple and compact structure and low deadweight propulsion system provide excellent short-field takeoff and landing performance, even enabling vertical takeoff. However, its drawbacks are significant. The hot exhaust from the rear nozzle leads to severe exhaust reinhalation problems. During vertical takeoff and landing, the low hovering altitude causes the oxygen-depleted, hot exhaust to rebound from the ground and be easily reinhaled by the engine, reducing engine efficiency and even causing surge. Vertical takeoffs are also very fuel-intensive. It's said that a single vertical takeoff consumes 1/3 to 1/4 of the Harrier's internal fuel, resulting in a combat radius of approximately 100 kilometers. Furthermore, the Pegasus's large engine cross-section results in high supersonic drag, forcing the Harrier to remain a subsonic fighter. Furthermore, the control system is extremely complex due to the adjustable nozzle area and afterburner, which is also a technical challenge. Currently, this technology lacks practical significance and serves only as a reference in engine history. The Yak 141's R79 plus RD41 engine was developed 10 years later than the Pegasus, but it represents a significant advancement over the Pegasus. The Yak 141's most significant feature is its lift-thrust separation. The cruise and lift engines each perform their respective functions, ensuring the efficiency and effectiveness of the cruise engine, making the Yak the world's first supersonic STOVL fighter. During test flights, the Yak 141 even achieved a maximum level flight speed of Mach 1.4 to 1.7. However, drawbacks remain. The high-temperature airflow from the cruise and lift engines is particularly problematic. When the aircraft is hovering, the high-temperature airflow is ejected from the engine nozzles and disperses outward upon reaching the ground. The low-pressure area formed beneath the fuselage creates a suck-down effect, which sucks the aircraft in. This is why the Yak-36 crashed on its first test flight, failing to take off. Later, due to the disintegration of its neighboring giant and a series of major national changes, the Yak 141's optimization efforts were discontinued, and unfortunately, it was abandoned. Finally, there's the F-35's F-135 engine. Developed from the F-119, it utilizes the F-119's three core components: the high-pressure compressor, combustor, and high-pressure turbine. The F-135 engine, with a redesigned fan, low-pressure compressor, and low-pressure turbine, is used in the short-to-vertical F-35B. The model is the F-135, PW600, or simply the F-135 engine. There's a rumor circulating within the industry that the F-35B copied some Yak 141 designs during the selection of its vertical propulsion technology. This isn't exactly funny in scientific research, and it's more about borrowing than anything else. It could be called taking advantage of the situation, or something even less impressive. However, they shouldn't underestimate their counterparts across the sea. Developing their own technology through learning is also a form of breakthrough. Their ability to continuously produce scientific research results is based on the work of their predecessors, building upon the foundation laid by their efforts and extending this foundation. They are not simply floating on the surface. Across the sea, they have indeed made a major breakthrough based on the Yak 141. The F-135 engine has clear advantages and disadvantages. Its advantage is that it continues the Yak-14's separation of lift and thrust, extending it to replace lift with thrust. The engine's lift fan's airflow comes from a low-temperature compressor, and the jet is room-temperature air. Therefore, even if it rebounds on the ground and is re-inhaled by the engine, it will not cause surge. This largely solves the problem of inlet distortion in the Yak series engines caused by the re-inhalation of high-temperature airflow. It also avoids the complex dynamic conditions and reliability issues associated with multiple engines on a single Yak series aircraft. To achieve these advantages, the engine plus drive shaft clutch plus fan configuration results in excessive space and a complex structure. This excessive size naturally leads to excessive weight. This vicious cycle, coupled with the excessive size and weight of the engine, leads to a core problem of insufficient weapons payload and insufficient deterrent capability. High wake temperatures. Even though the suck-down effect of the Yak series has been largely addressed with the addition of a low-temperature compressor and the conversion of the jet stream to room-temperature air, the tail plume still reaches temperatures exceeding 900 degrees Celsius, presenting a heavy burning load on the carrier's deck. While not enough to melt or collapse the deck steel structure, it can still cause deformation and damage, and can shatter the heat-resistant concrete of land-based airfields into snowflakes or completely melt asphalt. Furthermore, during low-speed vertical takeoff and landing, the lift fan's auxiliary intake valves are susceptible to damage due to the high wind pressure, a drawback of the fan. However, despite these shortcomings, the F-35B successfully completed its test flight. Confidential information reveals that over the past 2 or 3 years, the F-35 has repeatedly announced successful test flights and development, and has publicly stated that it will be deployed in stages within the next 2 years, placing immense pressure on the world. However, if Tong remembers correctly, in that future memory, F-35Bs crashed more than once, ultimately leading to the complete grounding of the F-35 fleet a decade later. Tong wasn't mocking the other party's arrogance, rather, she wanted to use this as a warning to herself. In the upcoming engine optimization, she must avoid the pitfalls and flaws discovered by the international community. Blind arrogance and gloating over others will eventually lead to her becoming a laughingstock. Wu Tong would not allow herself to make such a naive mistake. Chapter 296, Change Cycle. Wu Tong's mind was constantly refining the information. She pulled out a piece of scratch paper and wrote down the technical essences she had extracted, the reference directions, and the shortcomings they needed to overcome. Regarding the fan defect, the current reserve of super blade materials developed for the WS-15S should be able to largely address this shortcoming, preventing it from becoming a technical obstacle. The high-weight turbulence still needs to be addressed within the engine itself. If this problem remains unsolved, their ultra-high temperature resistant coating, reinforced coating, and new super roadbed material combination could serve as alternative technical solutions, or be used in combination. The oversized and overweight engines are the two most pressing issues that need to be addressed. The engine should be appropriately sized, not occupying too much space, freeing up significant space for increased payload. Similarly, the engine's weight should be kept within a reasonable range, as it is directly proportional to its size. As the size decreases, the weight naturally decreases, not increases. In reality, the WS-15S's basic performance is already superior given current technological advancements. However, the WS-15's foundation is based on conventional takeoff and landing aircraft, so it can't be directly adapted. To adapt it to the Street Zero VL fighter, it must build upon this foundation and surpass the Street Zero VL fighter's current combat radius of less than 300 kilometers. Given the vast expanse of the Chinese Sea, a narrow combat radius is a real hindrance. While significant investment is certainly worthwhile, it's necessary, but money should be spent wisely and not wasted. This is especially true when compared to the J-20's 20,000 kilometer range and the H-20's 30,000 kilometer base range, which are 10 to 20 times greater than the 300 kilometer range. The battlefield is ever-changing, and the reliance on refueling tankers for sustained operation and the narrow combat radius are crucial in combat. Without these changes, there's no practical value in doing so. A breakthrough is imperative. How could the same tank of fuel, capable of only 300 kilometers after supermaneuvering with the original engine, be optimized to a range tenfold, with a full payload, and reduced accordingly, to a combat radius starting at 3,000 kilometers, or even more? Various scenarios flashed through Wu Tong's mind. As if on premonition, he unconsciously drew a circle, and this circle caught his eye. A spark of inspiration ignited within him. Circle, cycle. Repetition, that's the way of nature. Repetition, cycle after cycle, cycle after cycle, change, change. Yes, change. Wu Tong's eyes lit up, and a storm surged within his mind, swirling more and more ideas, building blocks to gather more clues for a breakthrough. The thermodynamic cycle characteristics of traditional aircraft turbine engines are fixed. Traditional turbofan engines must be designed to strike a trade-off between high thrust and high efficiency. They cannot achieve both, nor can they be switched between them. Each engine can only operate in one mode, achieving peak performance only within a limited flight range. This traditional mode is unable to meet the fuel consumption requirements for supermaneuverability required for short-range vertical takeoffs. Could this engine change this? The variable cycle engine, VSEL, is a concept first proposed in the 1950s and 1960s. With the advent of the turbofan engine, its superior subsonic performance and high propulsion efficiency prompted engine designers to continuously pursue engines with higher bypass ratios. In supersonic flight, high bypass ratio turbofan engines consume significantly more fuel than low bypass ratio turbofan engines of the same thrust class, limiting the ability to increase the bypass ratio of supersonic aircraft engines. The VSEL variable cycle engine concept was born to ensure aircraft engines with superior performance in both subsonic and supersonic regimes. As fighter aircraft technology continued to advance and their flight envelopes expanded, the world began to place greater emphasis on integrated airframe propulsion system design after the 1980s. Because variable cycle engines offered particularly significant advantages in meeting these requirements, research on variable cycle engines for military fighter aircraft gradually began to develop. While domestic research in this area wasn't entirely lacking, it wasn't much better than in other areas. It was still in its infancy, and Wu Tong had only encountered fragmentary information and confidential documents, leaving little room for reference. Wu Tong initially didn't consider this solution until she suddenly drew a circle, thinking of cycles, and then, from deep within her memory, she pulled out the concept of a variable cycle. However, for Wu Tong, this wasn't a major concern. Having a clear direction was paramount, everything else was simply building upon the foundation, especially since she had the support of absolute deduction. Brother Lu, I've got a direction for engine optimization. Please inform Brother K and arrange for me to extend my return to school. Wu Tong, without even looking up, seemed to reflexively ask Lu Xiao to relay instructions for her. This also served as a passing reminder of the positive progress. Almost as soon as she finished speaking, Wu Tong sank into a state of undivided research, her hands constantly pushing and pulling. Wu Tong continued to refine the elements of the variable cycle engine, noting key points on a piece of scratch paper. This is a multi-design engine that adjusts thermodynamic cycle parameters, such as the compression ratio, turbine inlet temperature, airflow, and bypass ratio, by altering the engine's cycle operating mode, achieving either high thrust or low fuel consumption, ensuring optimal operation under various flight conditions. Furthermore, variable cycle engines can operate in multiple modes, including turbine, turbofan, and ramjet modes, enabling excellent performance in subsonic, transonic, supersonic, and hypersonic flight regimes. Wu Tong took up his pen and began to calculate based on the parameters of the quasi-perfect aerodynamic layout he had just arrived. Taking the thrust required by the engine and the dynamic parameters of supermaneuverable takeoff as the foundation, and the concept of variable cycle engine elements, Wu Tong began to build two sets of three-dimensional perspective model drawings in the deduction space. One set is the existing WS-15S, and the other set is a simple diagram of the parameter model that is still only a rough outline and very vague. Okay, Lu Xiao's voice was light and steady. Although he did not catch the moment when Wu Tong's inspiration was born, he was not unfamiliar with Wu Tong's fully devoted research state. This was not the first time he had seen Wu's state. Every time. It represents the birth of a miracle. Joy surged in his heart, and he was looking forward to Wu Tong's breakthrough progress. Chapter 297 Taking Shape. Guided by the broad outlines and using the key elements of the variable cycle engine as a basis, Wu Tong selected, deduced, and filled in precise data one by one. Within Wu Tong's deductive workspace, the vague, simplified design for the variable cycle engine gradually became more refined and clearer. The simultaneous progress of the design was reflected in Wu Tong's pen, unfolding into a series of progress charts. Knowing Wu Tong was completely absorbed in the deductions, Lu Xiao and Fen Yuanyang, who occasionally stopped by to discuss, dared not disturb him. Although they shared the same office, Wu Tong's corner created a quiet space all his own. Although inspiration struck Wu Tong this time, he determined the broad outlines and methodically filled in the details, not falling into a state of complete immersion and oblivious deduction. During his research, he was completely focused, undivided, and uninterrupted even during his 3 meals a day and rest. The drawings and calculation drafts grew thicker day by day, piling up above Wu Tong's desk. After 2 weeks of work, Wu Tong's research and development finally entered the countdown, having mastered the parameters required for the core principle of the variable cycle engine. The parameters for adjusting the diameters of the 3 ducts, as well as the material and process requirements required to achieve this under extreme temperatures, pressures, and speeds while ensuring engine structural stability, were crucial. Most current materials were incapable of this. Wu Tong optimized the available materials, improving those that didn't meet the standards to superior quality. He thoroughly deduced the required processes and detailed parameters for the entire variable cycle engine, also including conformal fuel tanks and thin-wall ceramic technology. Ultimately, the newly released WS-B1 variable cycle engine, based on budget data, once again surpassed the current world leader. It was only natural. The final design took shape under Wu Tong's pen, with all the data meticulously annotated. She had already simulated the physical assembly in a simulation space, confirming its feasibility and the optimal design based on her current academic level and technology. Brother Lu, the engine technology is finalized. Wu Tong put down her pen and announced to Lu Xiao, who was kneading and optimizing the overall aerodynamic layout. Lu Xiao was gradually detailing the J-35. The overall design was finally complete, but the aircraft wasn't a single piece. Their SD printing technology was still maturing. Even with this maturity, the precision of the parts was crucial. Complete fighter components couldn't be created out of thin air. A fighter isn't a collection of large, assembled blocks, but rather a collection of delicate components, large and small. The parameters of each component must be precisely defined, with impeccable accuracy. This is the key to a truly exceptional fighter. It's finished, Lu Xiao beamed, his face brimming with joy as he stood and walked towards Wu Tong's desk. Wu Tong unfolded the fully completed design in his hand and briefly introduced it to Lu Xiao. This is the WS-B1 variable cycle engine, an optimized and improved design based on the WS-15S. It retains the excellent power parameters of the WS-15S, but has adjusted the geometry and dimensions of the components, and redesigned their positions to achieve optimal control of its thermodynamic cycle parameters. This significantly reduces fuel waste and converts thermal energy into powerful kinetic energy. Further optimizations have been made to the compression ratio, turbine inlet temperature, airflow, and bypass ratio, thereby changing the engine's operating cycle, enabling it to operate optimally under high thrust or low fuel consumption conditions, and in various flight conditions. With a single method mastered, 100 methods were mastered. With a flash of inspiration and a clear direction, Wu Tong realized that variable cycle engine technology was no longer a daunting thorn in his side, leaving him with no clear path to explore. A clear path emerged. Following the right guidance, he gradually solidified the various technologies. Only time would pass before he finally achieved this final form. Finally, I didn't keep you waiting in vain, Brother Lu. I'm not holding you back. The J-35 pre-research is nearing completion. On the verge of project launch, Wu Tong breathed a sigh of relief, stretching her fingers and wrists from the long hours of riding. Her physical foundation was excellent, and with the nourishing power of the rising sun's purple energy, all her ailments had vanished. But just like the best machinery, it needs care and maintenance. Wu Tong's body isn't made of iron or steel. She'll still get tired after long hours of desk work, but she can hold out longer than most. With more exercise afterward, the discomfort will subside, preventing any future problems. Therefore, after a long period of desk work, Wu Tong would immediately stretch her fingers and wrists to relax and recuperate. Even if we haven't completed the engine optimization plan, it can't be considered a hindrance. It's just that her current technological level isn't up to the task. Lu Xiao didn't think Wu Tong's inability to complete the engine optimization plan was a hindrance. Scientific research is never smooth sailing. Success is essential. Even small improvements are a sign of success. It's just that each major improvement Wu Tong made only widened the gap. At best, we can all pool our wisdom. Strength lies in numbers, and we can always find a good solution. And now, Wu Tong, you've undoubtedly performed another miracle. As Lu Xiao spoke, he had already seen the various parameters and forecast data on the design drawings Wu Tong had spread out, and he couldn't help but praise him heartily. Such a groundbreaking improvement and optimization plan, pioneering a new engine design, is worth waiting for 2 or 3 weeks, not just 2 or 3. Scientific research progress has always been measured in years, even centuries, not days. The ultralight titanium aluminum alloy fuselage material, ultralight and high-strength carbon fiber composite materials, coupled with the two-pronged WS-B1 and its accompanying email technology, have completely addressed all of the STOVL fighter's shortcomings. STOVL's advantages, aided by the NS general solution, have reached the optimal state by surpassing current technological standards, greatly expanding its unique advantages. The F-35B has been ridiculed as only able to play in favorable situations and bully the weak. Many superficial people have concluded that the STOVL, currently undeveloped and lacking in value, will be completely overtaken by the J-35, which awaits the world's astonishment. Now is the time for us to work hard, nailing the detailed component design and not holding you back. Faced with this blueprint, Wu Tong felt free to be proud, no need for modesty. Let's all work together, make progress together, so that the J-35 can be deployed on ships as soon as possible and help the Navy. These are just drawings, mere deductions. We still need to go through experimental preparation and complete construction before we can truly achieve it. Wu Tong glanced at the blueprint, pointing out the many areas that needed experimental verification. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 Collaboration. Material preparation experiments can be handled at my interdisciplinary research institute at Peking University. B1 assembly and testing require the assistance of a mature, professional research institute. We need to work with two different people, so we need Mr. Yang's help when designing the material preparation process and engine upgrade optimization process. Wu Tong took into account the existing infrastructure. Mr. Yang's extensive experience in WS-15S development, coupled with specialized equipment and lab facilities, made him the perfect partner for the optimization. Mr. Yang is waiting, impatient, Lu Xiao said with a smile. Wu Tong had consulted with Mr. Yang before embarking on the WS-15S optimization and improvement project. Ever since he learned of Wu Tong's intentions, Mr. Yang had been eagerly awaiting good news, allowing him to witness the WS-15S's rebirth. The day before yesterday, General Manager Yang was still in touch with me. He's already sharpening his tools and ready to cooperate fully, General Manager Yang lamented during their conversation. His capabilities were merely Wu Tong's foundation. After nearly a year of hard work, they had only managed to fully grasp the WS-15S's optimization data. They barely made minor adjustments based on this base, and the final adjustments to the H-20 engine were still handled by Wu Tong himself. They had barely grasped the optimization technology, while Wu Tong had already begun a complete transformation and optimization of the WS-15S. It wasn't even an optimization, but a complete redesign. While retaining the WS-15S's turbofan design and superior power performance, it retained its long endurance capability, ushering in a new era of variable cycle engines. With such an excellent engine powering the J-35 project, their J-35 would undoubtedly overcome the current core technical limitations and shortcomings such as short range and small payload. I'd like to trouble you, Mr. Yang, to oversee this for me. This is my first time working on fighter jet engine development and design, and I'm a bit rusty on the project, although she already had a complete design and had completed physical simulations in deductive space. Deductive space was different from reality. In deductive space, she was like a god, creating things in an instant. In reality, every tiny component of the engine design had to be precisely mastered. How to move the project forward and complete it as quickly as possible required the supervision and control of experienced personnel, and even the management and arrangement of personnel. It involved every aspect, and it couldn't be accomplished in a flash like in deductive space. Her only experience was working on the PL-15 scramjet engine development and design, but at that time, she had the assistance of Mr. Hua from Hua Yangsing, and her focus was primarily on R&D. Mr. Wu, the 614th Institute will fully cooperate, without a word of hesitation, Mr. Yang Wei assured firmly. We will follow your orders in every action. I guarantee that you, Mr. Wu, will be at the 614th Institute like a finger, and you'll accomplish whatever you command. He had absolutely no objection to him assisting Wu Tong. There are numerous engine research institutes across China. President Wu's choice of the 614th Institute shows his respect and trust in them, a trust they will never betray. It's an honor for the 614th Institute to be given the variable cycle engine experimental development project. President Wu also showed his respect for him by keeping the news secret. Had it leaked, his old rivals would have been unsure how to discredit him and compete for the project. This isn't just a stellar achievement for the entire institute, it also comes with groundbreaking new technologies that will keep them in the throes for a long time. That's what makes them so coveted. The WS-15S's innovative technology has already irritated several other leading engine research institutes in China. They're practically chomping at the bit, constantly nagging them to share their knowledge. Haha. Don't even think about it. They haven't fully absorbed it yet, so how could they possibly give it away? Furthermore, this is top secret state secret, and the technology belongs to Wu Tong. Without permission from both his superiors and Wu Tong, there's no chance of it being shared privately. I thank Wu Tong for his overall trust in Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation. The H-20 was developed at Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation. Now, while the J-35 will certainly be based at the Zizhou Research Institute or, depending on the higher-ups, the chances of Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation's Zhongguang's 604th Institute being able to do so are slim. However, the fact that engine technology can be deployed at Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation is a core component. Variable cycle engines have been developed internationally, with countless manpower and resources still remaining undeveloped. Mr. Wu's design is poised to once again lead the world. If Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation can fully utilize these various extended and radiating technologies, it will reap significant rewards, completely widening the gap with its competitors and securing a dominant position in the domestic engine market. It's said that there's no first in literature, no second in martial arts. Even among researchers, who doesn't have a competitive drive to be the best? Without this desire to be the best, research is merely a matter of doing, not a genuine desire. Without that perseverance and that initial driving force, truly excellent research results are impossible. Of course, perseverance, a competitive drive, and motivation alone don't guarantee cutting-edge research results, but lacking them is even more crucial. For example, he and the 614th Institute, driven by the desire to develop a domestically produced aircraft engine and overcome the heart disease of domestic fighter jets, overcame numerous obstacles to create the WS-15. While the WS-15's performance isn't cutting edge, it's certainly a breakthrough. However, their ceiling has been reached, and further progress will largely be a matter of digestion. Further progress won't happen overnight, or within a year or two. Wu Tong has pushed the ceiling to its limits. But they were fortunate to have Wu Tong. They have the leapfrog optimization of the WS-15S, the miracle of the J-20 and H-20, and their world-breaking endurance and combat radius. Now, they are on the verge of a variable cycle engine even more advanced than those developed overseas. They never feel their efforts are in vain. At the very least, they have gained new insights. Wu Tong's choice represented an opportunity countless research institutes had desperately sought. Once they had it, they had to cherish it and not let anyone say they'd made a mistake. Thank you, Mr. Yang, for your tremendous support. I'll be returning to Beijing to lead the team in developing materials. Once the materials are finalized, I'll visit 614 for your collaboration. Before actual engine manufacturing could begin, all necessary preparations had to be completed in advance. Her interdisciplinary research institute at Peking University was well equipped to handle the initial material development and preparation work, which would then be transferred to 614 for the actual engine development and manufacturing experiments. No problem, Mr. Wu, we're always welcome to visit. Having finalized the collaboration with 614, Wu Tong left without further delay, arranging arrangements for her return to Beijing. Chapter 299 Chief Designer. When she first came here, she'd budgeted a 2-day stay, watching the maiden flight and then leaving. Unexpectedly, new developments in the J-35 research meant she'd be staying from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. She wouldn't be back in Kyoto until November, which would be before winter arrived. Under strict escort, thanks to the coordination and arrangements of Lu Xiao, Engineer Zun, and the others, Wu Tong and the classified information were safely transferred to the military airport where Wu Tong landed. In front of the specially arranged plane, Wu Tong bid farewell to Lu Xiao, Engineer Zun, and the others. Brother Lu, those who are capable should take on more responsibility. I'll leave the rest to you. I'll go back and focus on further research on the engine sector. Engineer Zun, Professor Feng, see you next time at the project. Thank you for your care and support. I'll arrange the project approval and allocate the funds as soon as possible. Lu Xiao, always forthright, made the most practical arrangements. The J-35 project's preliminary research had gone more smoothly than expected, so naturally, he had to expedite the project approval process. Fortunately, he had recently begun preparing the project documents, waiting only to submit them. See you next time. See you next time. Engineer Zun and Feng Yuanyang smiled and waved goodbye to Wu Tong. The next time they met would be when the J-35 entered the actual R&D and manufacturing project team, and they were looking forward to seeing each other again. No one wanted to avoid working with a top talent like Wu Tong, who could single-handedly replace an entire team, or even 10 with such a talented individual. They were guaranteed a comfortable win. By taking advantage of the H-20 collaboration, they had secured an early entry, a feat many envied. After discussing with Wu Tong, the J-35 project application, codenamed Kanglong, meaning a blue dragon soaring across the sea, was quickly presented to Aviation Group's Lin Yongming and Research Department head Xu Hengyan. They had anticipated this day, but the speed of the project application still exceeded their expectations. In particular, the document noted that they had conducted thorough preliminary research and had a comprehensive R&D and design plan. The projected data provided was incredibly exciting. If these data could be achieved, They would overcome all obstacles, tighten their belts, and do everything in their power to achieve it. Their aircraft carrier technology started too late, and so far, they can only barely launch it. Their combat capability and weapon systems have yet to be fully finalized, making everything feel forced. If the J-35 were implemented, its short-range catapult, vertical takeoff, and predicted combat capability and endurance would significantly improve the carrier's shortcomings. This was essential for a safe and secure future in the deep blue ocean. Both Lin Heming and Chu Hengyan held immense trust and anticipation for the success of this project, not for anything else but for chief designer Wu Tong. Chief engineer Lu Xiao, his two golden brands, the J-20, codenamed Weilong, the redesigned H-20, codenamed Kunpeng, Lu Xiao's signature Yaoguang defense system, and Wu Tong's numerous exceptional achievements, all served as the strongest guarantee. Neither of them was known for boasting, but the fact that they could boast of a complete preliminary research plan, such as the guaranteed content editor for the project application, proved they had truly met the technical development requirements. Based on their past experience, their success rate should have been at least 80%. Even with a success rate of only 50%, they dared to take the plunge for the sake of national strength. With such a high probability of success, how could they not support it? The Kanglong J-35 must be developed, and every possible support must be given, with the project launched as soon as possible, funding allocated, and full cooperation required. They needed this powerful military deterrent support. If the J-35 Kanglong was successfully developed and implemented, it would form a cornerstone with the J-20 Weilong and H-20 Kunpeng, forming the most stable triangle to safeguard China's sovereignty over the skies and the deep blue sky. No matter how long China's borders extend, no matter how vast its seas, with the speed, endurance, and weaponry these three aircraft possess, they can provide support at any time, patrolling extensively and leaving no loopholes for any criminals coveting China, deterring all scoundrels, promoting China's prestige, and straightening their proud backs. Approved, must support, Chu Hengyan submitted the project application. The old man's firm voice echoed Chu Hengyan's fiery resolve. Chu Hengyan hung up the phone and immediately contacted Lin Heming. Contact the Air Force and Navy to hold the project review. Funds were pooled from all sources. Initial funding was allocated immediately, and subsequent funds were to be raised and allocated as quickly as possible. More than initially anticipated, Chu Hengyan had decided to involve the Navy this time, and it's fair to say that the Navy would contribute the lion's share. After all, the STVOL fighter is, after all, a carrier-based aircraft. Although the aircraft carrier has just been launched, China never fights unprepared. The carrier-based aircraft squadron has already begun training. Carrier-based pilots are specifically designated as carrier-based aviation. This unit is a newly established combat force within the Chinese Navy, specifically dedicated to the carrier-based aircraft within the Navy. Its goal is to enhance the Navy's combat capabilities, thereby further developing China's aircraft carrier program and strengthening the operational capabilities of the carrier and its carrier-based aircraft. The roles of carrier-based aircraft and their pilots are clearly defined and belong to the Chinese Navy. Therefore, the Navy must shoulder the lion's share of the research and development costs. Did they keep telling Wu Tong, "Boss Wu, don't be partial," hoping Lu Xiao would pay more attention to the Navy? Now, two geniuses have joined forces to customize the J-35 specifically for them. Now it's their turn to get serious. As for the Air Force, with all the cutting-edge technology the Kanglong J-35 will feature, I doubt the Air Force wouldn't want it. Besides, who says there's only one version of the J-35? The F-35 has three versions: conventional takeoff and landing, STOVL, and carrier-based. If they can muster the funding, they can develop three, and even a fourth, an airborne version, to serve as a cutting-edge backup for the J-20. They had to match Wu Tong's development speed with a PL-15. They had to move quickly, not delay. They absolutely couldn't let the embarrassing and painful situation of researchers producing results while their funding lagged behind, leading to project delays, happen. After all, this time, it was truly the collaboration of Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, two top talents, along with engineers on, Professor Feng Yuanyang, and General Manager Yang Wei. With the full support of all parties, and the already impressive material reserves, each one of them promised a guaranteed success in the J-35's development. Chu Hengyan acted swiftly, and a three-party meeting was quickly convened in the confidential office of the research department. Chapter 300, Sour Teeth. Looking at the brief screenshots of information in his hand, Leader Wu, an old acquaintance from the Air Force, couldn't help but widen his eyes. Oh my goodness. Such an amazing fighter jet, capable of short vertical takeoff. This must be the STVL fighter that old M is working on, boasting so much. Their researchers are incredible. It had only been so shortly after the other side announced a successful test flight, and they were already catching up on R&D, still waiting for implementation. Leader Wu's intuition was sharp. Could it be? And as the Navy leader, summoned to this meeting for the first time, he couldn't take his eyes off it. This data, surely they could achieve it? No kidding. Only they knew how difficult it was for them to build an aircraft carrier. Back then, after a special period, the two countries restored diplomatic relations. Leader Liu led China's first technical delegation to the other side for an inspection. On the final day of the inspection, they visited the USS Kitty Hawk aircraft carrier. Although they were allowed to tour, they were prohibited from touching or even approaching the aircraft carrier's facilities, citing confidentiality, and were required to observe from a distance. To get a better look, Liu, a man in his 60s, couldn't help but stand on tiptoe and lean forward to peer inside the carrier, hoping to take in every detail of the equipment. He ignored the sarcasm and ridicule of China's technological backwardness. But it was Liu's unwavering desire for modern technology and aircraft carriers that immediately led him, upon his return, to draft China's first aircraft carrier engineering report and focus on its development. From scratch, from the decommissioned Varag, which had been brought into China by every possible means, to the now renovated Ningliao, all these are examples of the arduous progress of China's aircraft carriers. Their navy, despite such difficult circumstances, made progress, and seeing the progress of upgrading their arsenal, could not afford any mistakes or the possibility of financial fraud. As the head of a certain navy, Li Huaimin remained extremely cautious. Liu's dedication to the country back then was heartbreaking, and it moved countless Chinese people to tears. Is this data real? Hey, old Li, don't you see where you are? Leader Wu glanced at the person next to him. Such a short-sighted person, surprised by something new. If the carrier-based aviation brigade were assigned to the Air Force, there would be no need to grind their teeth now. Even if the Air Force's resources were compromised, they would still have to make a big move. The effort and reward were directly proportional. With such exceptional data, such groundbreaking achievements, Leader Wu smelled a familiar formula. It was likely that the two geniuses who had just finished working on the H-20 hadn't stopped working on the J-35. China was truly overjoyed to have such a talented person to help. This year's progress on the Air Force side rivaled the progress of the previous decade. They didn't deny the hard work of all the researchers, but that didn't diminish their eagerness. The more researchers like Wu Tong, the better. Old Li thought that the higher-ups would allow the research department and the aviation group to join forces and bring together the Air Force and the Navy for a top-secret meeting. Was there anything he could doubt? He was truly stunned by the sea breeze. Go to hell, old Wu. I'm just being cautious, Li Huaimin glared at the sneering Leader Wu. What did this reckless man who mistook his stubbornness for straightforwardness know? Don't think that just because the Air Force has made great strides with the assistance of scientific researchers this year, they can just stand back and laugh at them. Of course I don't doubt that Chu and President Lin would joke about this, but this data is too shocking. Are they truly sure they can do it? However, thinking about the Air Force's J-20 and H-20, which have taken off one after another and have data so superior that it is unbelievable to the world, he couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation. What if it really can be done? Then their Navy will truly have the dominance and confidence to go deep into the blue. Leader Li, I understand how you feel. It's shocking, and I share your feelings upon seeing this data, but it's certainly achievable. This design and data came from the founders of the Weilong and Kunpeng aircraft, the two chief designers you've always wanted to work with. Wu Tong and Lu Xiao, the two who jointly developed and designed the J-35 project, will serve as chief designer, with Lu Xiao as chief engineer. Chu Hengyu nodded in understanding at Li Huaimin's disbelief. However, he believed that as long as he spoke of the people who endorsed this R&D plan, Li Huaimin would no longer have too many doubts. As Chu Hengyu had expected, the names of Wu Tong and Lu Xiao were the ultimate guarantee. With these two, skilled at creating miracles, endorsing this R&D plan, Li Huaimin's confidence surged. Oh, it's General Manager Wu and General Manager Lu. Commander Chu, if you had told me earlier, I wouldn't have had to deal with all this. No problem. Thank you General Manager Wu and General Manager Lu for finally recognizing our Navy's difficulties and bringing us this good news. Li Huaiman's attitude immediately changed. Look at me, I'm so slow. Only General Manager Wu and General Manager Lu could come up with this data and this design. These two talented individuals are hard to find internationally. God knows how envious they must be, watching the Air Force flourish this year, adding 2 super combat forces in a row. Oh my, General Manager Wu and General Manager Lu have finally recognized the Navy's difficulties and focused their research efforts on improving its combat capabilities. This is truly great news. No matter how much funding we need, even if it means digging up our own pockets, we'll give it our full support. Carrier-based aircraft, STOVL fighters, right? President Lu and President Wu are truly formidable. Once they develop the J-35, we'll be right on par with the other side of the sea. Li Huaiman exclaimed happily. No, look at my lack of talent, but it should be leading the world. Wu Tong and Lu Xiao's actions reveal their effectiveness. Their collaboration had always surpassed international standards. Even if they were greedy, they would still surpass international standards. He believed that both of them were fair-minded. If they had given the Air Force results that far surpassed international standards, they wouldn't have given the Navy anything inferior. He believed in their strength. Leader Li, you're generous. Leader Wu, the development of the J-35 conventional takeoff and landing version requires strong support from the Air Force. After securing one, Chu Honging turned his gaze to the Air Force representative who was watching the show with envy. I didn't call you here just to watch the show. Despite his straightforward demeanor, this man must be incredibly intelligent to hold this position. He possesses a certain air of wit and a knack for luck. Yes, but we just finished the H-20, and it's a major undertaking. Our capital is really running out. Leader Wu didn't refuse to contribute. Not only did he mention the J-35's development and implementation, and the conventional takeoff and landing version could be a powerful force to suppress the skies, but he also couldn't stand idly by just for the sake of General Lu and General Wu, the benefactors who helped them develop these 2 super weapons and powerful weaponry. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.